I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting, September 29th, 2020, 7 p.m. web-based meeting hosted by Zoom. We have two public hearings continued. First on our agenda is Shelley Woods LLC, Tim Draper, 9 units, Connecticut State Statute 8-30G, affordable housing, 47 Shelley Road. So Neil, I guess I will turn this over to you.
Okay, I'm just going back to see, when we left the meeting last time, the hearing, I should say, there were a couple of open issues and reports that you've asked Steve Trinkus in particular to address. So rather than wasting a lot of time, you should have two letters from Steve, reports, letters, whichever you want to refer to them. One dated September 25th and one dated September 25th, but revised on September 29th. And I think they address some of the reports from the review engineers. And I think at this point, we could do this one of two ways. I could ask Steve to go through his report if that's what the commission wants, or if you guys are familiar and just want to ask questions about him, we could do it that way too. But what's your pleasure?
Beth, was this loaded into the Google Drive?
No.
Pat, this is Steve Trinkus. The earlier letter was the one this afternoon, as I was waiting, hopefully to have gotten comments from health. Didn't come in until about 4 o'clock, but we only got the other letters from the traffic engineer yesterday, and then Beth had sent me Todd's comments the day before. So, so I was out this morning, so this all happened this afternoon. So, but that's why I can go over it. It was submitted at the end of the day, but I had no other time to get it done.
All right, if you'd like to address it, because we don't have copies, so you're going to have to tell us exactly the items you're addressing.
I will be happy to. Before we get into the more recent comments,
Steve, could you put your camera on so we could see?
My camera is on my laptop is not working, Beth. I get a pixeled image. I don't know why. So I'm just on audio. And I do not have a camera on my main desktop.
Okay.
So I'm just on audio. The health department, and this was prior to the site walk on last Friday, had originally asked for 40 scale plans. We had provided the original 20 scales, which we originally submitted to this commission. 20 scale is a standard scale that we use for septic systems throughout the state. At 40 scale, you quite honestly would not be able to read the plans. That's why I gave the health department the 20 scale plans. The current plan set was revised to 1 inch equals 10 feet, which is twice the size. And consequently, they're on much larger sheets to see all the same information. The health department also asked us to file a form with the state health department for screening of a public water supply company, which that document will actually go out in the mail tomorrow to the state health department. We do not believe that it is, but we'll be happy to file it. And whatever the state says, we'll go that route. It doesn't change the fact that 4 individual wells are proposed, 1 for each building, along with the 4 septic systems.
Excuse me, Mr. Trinkhouse, can I just interrupt you on the screening form question? Why you mentioned that? I think it's a relatively small form, and I'm happy to hear that you're sending that out. But I think there is a place on there that the public health director has to sign off on it and give.
I unmuted, but I don't have sound.
Can everyone hear me? Chuck Anders for the record. I'm sorry.
Yes, Chuck.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Mr. Trinkhouse, the question is, can you get that? Because I think we don't want to have the state send it back. So if you can get that to the health director, then she can sign off on it, and then either she or you can get it.
If it's required, I will have Laura sign it, and I will mail it in.
Okay, yeah, I think if you look in the form, there's a place for her sign off. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, at the last hearing, there were comments from the commission about the proposed driveway. This is not a subdivision road. This is a driveway. It is 20 foot in width. It conforms to the 2015 International Fire Code Part 3. And this is in the September 25th letter. And this is the controlling document for emergency access. So the sections are cited there. In addition, at the request of your fire marshal, we showed that he could turn a fire truck around at the top of the hill where the units are. The minimum turning radius for the aerial truck, which is the largest fire truck in the Bethel department, the inside radius is 22.5 feet. The smallest curve on the driveway, the inside radius at the curb line is 36 feet. So we exceed that by just about 14 feet. So the fire truck can easily go up the driveway and get to where the units are. The grade of the driveway has a landing at the bottom of the hill at the intersection with Shelley Road. And then it is a maximum driveway grade of 12%. And this is the grade that is allowable by your subdivision, by your zoning regulations, specifically section 3.2, which talks about access ways. So for an access way, it's a 12-foot wide driveway at a maximum 12% grade within a 25-foot strip. And obviously that's considered safe. So a 20-foot wide driveway that's also at 12%, you would also consider safe by the same very definition. There are standards in the subdivision regulations. However, this is not a subdivision, so those standards are not applicable. We also submitted architectural plans that conform to the dimensional footprints shown on the site plan. The site plan governs, but the footprints now by the architect showing a conceptual floor plan and elevation drawings now conform to those dimensions, and those were sent in PDF form with the 25th letter. We also submitted a copy of the survey from New England Land Surveying that had their live signature and seal. On my site plans, I did put the signature and seal on mine. I inadvertently put it on a layer that does not plot in AutoCAD called def points. And when Todd raised that issue, I looked and realized that today. So just this afternoon with the follow-up letter is a revised set of PDF plans that you can see the live signature and seal on it. As far as that goes. These plans are very readable. They're at 10 scale, which is in engineering terminology, pretty much a bed sheet because it's a very large plan. These were done at the request of the Northwest Conservation District during the wetlands application. There is an existing easement along the southern side or the right-hand side of the Shelley Road property that goes up to the open space at the top of the hill. None of the work that we're doing with the pocket pond or where the septics go have any impact to the easement or to potential pedestrian access going up there. As it goes up an extremely steep area just above where the pocket pond is to the east, it's really not suitable for pedestrian access. I don't think anybody's ever used it as far as that goes. There was also a question about how much open area there was at the site. There's 4.6 acres out of the 7.96 that is not being disturbed. It is remaining as wood. So roughly 57% of the site is remaining in its natural condition. Yesterday and the day before, as I noted, we had gotten additional comments. It appears that Frederick Clark, that used to be a standalone planning and traffic firm, has been bought by a firm called Hardesty Hanover. And they had comments on the safety of the driveway. And I'll go through my response, which again is in the revised 92920. The turning area at the top of the hill in front of all the units, exclusive of the parking spaces. So this is the area that's unencumbered by spaces or islands, is a little over 7,300 square feet, or basically 70 by 100 feet.
Excuse me, Steve, don't you think it would be helpful if you had the site plan in front of you as you're explaining this going along?
Sharing capabilities.
If David wants to pull it up, that's fine. I can tell him the sheet.
Well, I'm just making a suggestion to be helpful to everybody.
if David would like to pull it up, I'll tell him which sheet to pull up.
I'd appreciate it. I'm going back and forth between the PDF and the audio here, so that would be helpful.
Very much so.
Can you do that, David?
I am working on that as we speak,
Okay,
sir.
just,
There's nothing that David can accomplish with audio and visual.
I can
I have a lot
vouch
of
for that.
confidence in him.
I can vouch for it.
Okay. I am 47 Shelley Road. Application materials. Okay. I am working with the site plan sheet set dated March 31st, 2020.
you should have more recent ones. You should have
You have
one. that I
one
sent-
dated 7/16/20.
Oh, okay. I will try to find
You
those.
would have the set that I just sent the other day, I think the 25th.
Okay, I have a more recent set, I believe. Here we go. 7/16/20. Okay, and what sheet am I looking at, Mr. Trinkus?
Probably one of, if you pull it up, David, I can tell you probably.
Okay,
While he's pulling that up, Steve, just a technical question, and Todd, maybe you can help me too as I'm going through my stuff. I think the drawings that you submitted the other day with your report of the 25th, weren't they the same drawings that we used in July, Steve?
Yes, they were, Beth. The only difference would have been the
So it's either
signature
the
and seal.
7/16 or
Yeah.
7/20. There wasn't a revision date of September on those, right?
No, there wasn't. It was
Okay.
simply adding the signature and seal to it.
Right, you made the architecturals fit your footprint, not the other way
Yes.
around.
okay. I am about to pull up the plans. Anyone have any questions before I do so?
No.
Just pull them up.
Okay. Are these coming through on everyone's screen?
Not
Not
yet.
There we go.
Okay, probably I would say, David, either, keep scrolling. I'll tell you when to stop. We just want the one that's really at the top of the hill. So keep going. That one you could stop at,
This
Okay.
sheet?
this sheet.
Okay.
So, but just you scroll down a little bit, David, or the other way, actually scroll up so that the septic is kind of at the bottom edge, but the parking area is shown. Okay, that's good. Okay, so the area that is, Unit A is shown the bottom left of the screen. Unit B is directly north of that. And then C and D are kind of right at the top of the page. You see a half of building D. So the 7,300 square feet of available area to turn around any type of vehicle, whether it's a fire truck, a UPS truck, a garbage truck, is outside the parking spaces in front of the units and down to a line just at the upper edge of the dumpster across the driveway. So dimensionally, what we have is from the front of building A, the parking island basically, all the way over to, again, the parking space in front of building D, which would be space number 16 on the plan, is 102 feet. If we go from building A to building C, which is kind of in the upper left, just off the page, that distance is 113 feet. If we go from, again, the parking spaces on building B, where 8 and 10 are shown, down to literally just in line with the north edge of the dumpster, that's 90 feet. The emergency aerial truck is 39 feet in length. That's the part of the truck that's on the ground. The aerial boom does extend off the back, approximately 8 to 10 foot. But clearly, if you have a 39-foot truck and you have roughly 100-foot area, you can make a 3-point turn with that vehicle without any trouble as far as that goes. And if you can turn the aerial truck around, it goes without saying that you can turn a garbage truck around, which is much smaller, a UPS, a FedEx truck, or any similar sized delivery vehicles for that. The driveway grade is maximum 12%, as I said, after landing at Shelley Road. There are no sags or crest vertical curves. It was a uniform grade all the way up. There was a request, again, by the traffic firm for stopping sight distances. However, there is no speed for a driveway. There's nothing in the Bethel regulations saying, you know, a driveway is 10 miles an hour or 15. It is sure not 25 miles an hour. And that's what you might see on Shelley Road. A driveway, and I think if everybody thinks of pulling in their own driveways, you're probably going 5, maybe 10 miles an hour. The purpose of a stopping sight distance is really for the driver to see an object or a child in the roadway and be able to stop safely. At 10 miles an hour, with a program I found in New Jersey where you could put in the data, you would need 80 foot as a stopping sight distance. Even on the sharpest curve where I have a 36-foot inside radius, we have over 90 foot from where the vehicle would be to where you would see a kid in the roadway. But again, we don't expect children to be playing on this driveway. There's plenty of space around the units for kids to play as far as that goes. There's also an argument in the letter that, you know, this could be unsafe. Well, if 12% is the maximum permissible driveway grade in Bethel, then by the argument being made here that this could be unsafe at 20-foot width, then every other driveway in the town of Bethel at 12% grade would therefore also be unsafe. And that would beg the question, if it is unsafe, why hasn't it been changed by the town? 12% is a common maximum grade for driveways. Several communities in Fairfield County, Wilton being one, actually has an 18% allowable grade for a driveway. Having designed some to that standard, those driveways are steep. 12% is common, and it is not an excessive grade, especially in this case where it's a 20-foot wide paved surface. There are also 5-foot shoulders on either side that will be grassed before we either have a slope down, a slope up, or a retaining wall as far as that goes. There are no sidewalks proposed on the plan. You're at the end of Shelley Road. There's no sidewalks on Shelley Road, so a sidewalk down this driveway would be a sidewalk to effectively nowhere. They also raised the issue, and I think maybe Todd did also, about a school bus. A school bus is going to be at the bottom of the hill. It is not going to come up the driveway. The kids will walk down the driveway or very likely be driven down there by mom or dad, which occurs commonly in subdivisions, including my own, when the people's driveways are 100 to 200 feet in length. It's unlikely the kids will be walking up and down the hill, but they can either walk down the driveway, which is safe, or they can walk on the shoulders, which is equally safe going down there. We also took the fire truck turning template, and this is again on the revised plans I sent in at the end of the day today, and we showed it turning in from Shelley Road into the driveway. And it is clear that the 25-foot pavement radius there is more than adequate for the aerial truck to make that turn. I would also submit that since new roads in Bethel and other communities, we always do 25-foot curve returns on the pavement when the roads are intersecting an existing town road. If emergency vehicles can make those turns, it can make the turn coming in to here. That's why that radius is 25 feet. And the radius on the north side is smaller because we have a dead end road to the end of Shelley Road at this point, as far as that goes. The site distances, Todd, I think, raised a question about this. The topography and survey does not extend as far to the south as the sight line shows. And the reason it does is that's where the limit of the surveyors did their work. However, to measure the sight line, what I did was set up my transit at the center of the driveway, 10 foot back from the edge of the pavement at a height 3.5 feet above what the proposed grade will be. And with a survey rod and another person, the other person walked down the road to the north and then to the south. And we showed that we have at least 250 foot from that. So it was a field measured sight distance. It was not a measured distance on a plan. Additionally, the traffic engineers say it should be measured 15 foot back because that's a DOT standard. This Shelley Road is not a DOT road. And it is commonly used for residential driveways that we use a 10 foot distance back from the edge of the travel lane, or if you were on a road that had a white line as a shoulder, you measure it back not from the edge of the pavement, but from the shoulder, the edge of the traveled lane. But again, Shelley Road is a 25 mile an hour speed limit, so 10 times the speed limit is 250 foot. They talk about using the 85th percentile speed. That would generally be if you have traffic monitoring devices and generally that's found on DOT roads where they count the vehicles and the speed. And in many cases, the 85th percentile is higher than the posted limit. I know on a site I had in Bridgewater on Route 67, the posted speed limit, I believe, is 45. The 85th percentile was actually 58 miles an hour. So the sight distance was based 10 times that value. But here, again, we have a dead end road. We're almost at the dead end of it. 250 foot is more than adequate. And that's the minimum. You can actually see farther than that, but we demonstrated that we have the minimum sight distance as far as that goes. Regarding Todd's comments, again, as I pointed out, the plans I submitted today has my signature and seal on it on a layer that plots. But I also want to just point out for the record, just recently I have reviewed 2 sets of plans done by Mylone and McBroom, one being a school and one being a large ground mounted solar array. And in both cases, existing conditions maps were done by Mylone and McBroom. They were not signed by either a surveyor or an engineer. And the site plans for these 2 respective jobs in the electronic filing were also not signed and sealed. So we provided that information, but I think it's important to point out that, you know, the reviewer's firm has not done that when they've submitted electronic files.
Okay. So excuse me one moment, Mr. Trinkus. I just want to make sure that you're clear to understand too, that we've been asking for that information since May of this year. And we want to thank you very much for providing it finally. It's now September 29th.
But we've submitted plans.
Electronically.
They've been signed and sealed. That's fine. He talks of the dumpster grade in front of dumpster. The driveway grade is slightly over 6%. I measured it about 6.45. You probably want to go back to the same sheet, David, we were on to start with right there. The dumpster is right kind of at the throat of where the driveway widens out. The dumpster pad is at the same elevation that the driveway would be. It is level. And a garbage truck would come up, turn around, be facing downhill. A worker would get out, wheel the bin out. Now, dumpster bins don't have rubber tires. They have those heavy metal tires. Those do not roll very well. They're also rolling the dumpster out and then slightly turning it to face the garbage truck so it can pick it up and dump it in there. It is not going to roll down the hill. Over the length of a dumpster.
Steve, can I ask a question?
Sure.
This is Todd Ritchie with Mylone and McBroom for the record. I'm getting a little confused. You're saying that the dumpster is going to be rolled out, but you just said it doesn't roll very well.
It doesn't roll freely. You have to push and or pull the dumpsters out.
And will this be pushed or pulled from a level dumpster pad onto a 6.5% slope?
It would be likely. I'm not a garbage man, but it would likely.
That's kind of, it's pretty straightforward. You show it on your plan on a level dumpster pad, correct?
Yes.
And you just said, excuse me, the slope in front of it is 6.5% going down the driveway, a cross slope of 6.5% in front of the dumpster pad. So if you're going to be rolling this out off of the pad so that it can be picked up by a garbage truck, aren't you not rolling it onto a 6.5% slope?
It is,
Yes or no? I mean,
yeah, you are, okay?
Okay.
You are, but it's not going to go anywhere. The dumpsters, quite honestly, are quite heavy and they don't roll freely. I have a site in Milford where we have a 5% driveway grade.
then it's gonna be a difficult endeavor for the person to even roll it off of the pad. You can't have it both ways.
Well, I'm not a garbage man.
If you're saying he can't, if you're saying it can't be rolled off of a on a 6.5% slope, that's to your advantage for it to be sloped to move it.
What I'm saying,
And then you're not going to be able to push it on a flat slope.
what I'm saying, Todd, is it's not going to freely roll on itself. It is going to have to be pushed out and pushed around to the truck.
How many locations in Bethel do they push dumpsters off of level pads onto a 6.5% slope?
That's a question for the town. I don't know.
Yeah, Todd, and see, this is Neil Marcus. This is a very interesting discussion, which I think would be better directed towards somebody in the garbage industry that actually does this. Actually,
I actually disagree with you, Neil, because it's pretty simple issue. When a 6.5% slope is a pretty significant slope for something to roll down.
So your question is correct. If the burden, of course, is on the town.
And if there's ice on the drive, okay, then I guess we're gonna have to go out.
Gentlemen, please don't talk over each other.
Okay.
I didn't interrupt you, but I'm going to suggest that you take it upon yourself, because you've raised this issue, to determine whether, and the only way you're really going to find out is to talk to the garbage service, whether there are grades like that in Bethel, so that we can take a look at them and find out if they have presented a problem. I mean, these guys, the garbage companies won't service a site that they think is unsafe. They won't let their drivers be subjected to potential injury.
That's
so
fine. We will find a 6.5% slope somewhere in town, and we'll we'll have them take a dumpster and we'll have them roll it on the 6.5% slope, and we'll see what happens.
You know, as I say, I spent the afternoon with Phil Lepresti, who is very knowledgeable in this. I'll try to get that information for you, even though, quite honestly, the burden is on the town to show that that's a problem. We're talking about health and safety, and I'm not sure, it sounds like you're talking about the safety of the operator of the garbage truck.
No, actually, I'm talking about the safety of the people who are moving this. I'm talking about I'm talking about the safety of the people who are driving up the driveway. If this dumpster rolls down the driveway, and hits a car.
Yep.
I mean,
well,
it's pretty. I mean,
it's
pretty obvious to me that if you can't control something because it's on a slope, that's dangerous.
And we should check with the Bethel police actually to see if they have any accident incidents, because they would have a report if something happened. So let's take a look at that.
Sure.
But for you and Steve to engage in your discussion of, neither of you, I assume, have actually worked on a garbage truck.
I know that's what you like to say, but just like I can't calculate, truckloads of material because I'm not experienced in construction, like I guess somebody else would be.
That again, we
you don't need to disparage me, Mr. Marcus. Thank you.
No.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
This is crazy.
Let's just look at it. Excuse me, gentlemen. Let's just look at it from a very practical, common sense, layman's point of view. What we're saying, our engineer is saying, hey, look, we've had a very involved discussion between the two parties, Steve and Todd. I'm starting to understand, wow, okay, a 6% heavy dumpster. Let's figure it out. Is it a safety or a health issue or not? Neil, correct. You say you have access to speak to someone in the garbage industry. Please do. It would be nice for the applicant to follow up on some of these concerns that we've been raising over the last couple of months. That's all I'm going to say.
I agree, Beth. I think it's the applicant has to tell us. It's not up to us to tell the applicant. It's up to the applicant to prove to us it's not a safety issue.
Well, actually, under 8-30G, Pat, the burden does shift, but that's okay. We're going to work with it one way or the other.
I hope so, because you're confusing me to no end, Mr. Marcus, because as far as I can see, this is the applicant's design. And if the dumpster is not where it's going to be 100% safe, then perhaps
Yes.
where it is should be moved. It is, I can't
Yes,
understand
yes,
why, wait a
yes.
minute. I cannot understand how you're saying it becomes the town's problem. This is the applicant's site plan.
No,
This
no,
should
no, no, no.
take
Kitty, you don't
right from the
understand.
start, but
I'm
that's
not
what you said.
I'm not saying it's the town's problem. There's a burden of proof on raising issues of safety. Later on, you can discuss this with Chuck. He's listening to all this. But on 8-30G, it shifts to the town to show that there is a specific safety issue and that it can't be addressed with a reasonable condition of approval. But at the moment, everybody's speculating on whether this occurs. The town has not definitively shown that there's a safety issue. So at the moment, I think that both sides should get a professional opinion, which really is from somebody who operates the equipment.
Just table it. Neil's right. It's speculation at this point.
I've heard of it.
So we'll go ahead and we'll get our own professional opinions from
Yes.
some garbage collectors. That's okay. Not rocket science. I know Phil too. Don't worry.
Yeah. He's very
Right.
accessible.
Yeah.
He gets around.
Yes. Yeah.
Jesus, man.
Not too well. He's got a leg problem.
Okay.
Okay, I will continue if we're past the dumpster. On the right-hand side of Building A, near the edge of the paper, there is a couple graded contours that define a little bit of a swale right about where you see 20D. Todd was concerned that this would discharge water to the driveway, except the high point is literally just at the edge of the paper. It's 11 feet above this. This is not going to direct any water onto the driveway. All the other slopes between Building A and B, B and C, C and D are a similar fashion where they're graded down to the driveway. And, you know, it's all going to be grassed or landscaped, and there's no need for a yard drain in that location. Todd had a question, and David, if you just scroll up a little bit to get to the bottom of this sheet a little bit.
Steve, may I ask a question about the swale?
Sure.
You're just pointing the direction of the swale, and your grades grade the swale out to the driveway. The discharge will be onto the driveway. The flow from the swale will enter the driveway. Actually, it will go across the sidewalk for, what is it, unit? I can't read it.
That's A.
The P5, whatever the unit is for that. I just can't see it on the screen. So your flow, the swale discharges right near the well in that location.
Can we point out P5, please, David? It's hard to find.
Yeah, unit
No, you're
one.
hard.
Unit one. Thank you for zooming
Thank you.
on Zoom. Sorry. And so the swale comes, discharges at basically the location of the well, and all that concentrated flow that will discharge from the swale at that location flows now towards what is labeled P6. That's your grading. That's where it flows. That's concentrated flow. It doesn't go away. It doesn't dissipate. It's concentrated onto the driveway, onto the sidewalk. That's my point.
Well, that's fine. You can make your point. I made my response. The high point to the swale is right at the edge of the page. Just
can you explain it? I don't
Excuse
understand.
me.
I'm just asking, can you explain the high point? I just don't understand.
The high point right above the 574 contour here, which comes off the end unit and comes around.
Can you please point?
On the
I
next-
just need to understand.
Okay,
on
excuse
the
me, Todd, David, could you point out what Steve just mentioned?
Can you give Steve control so he can point?
I don't have it on this is my laptop, Todd.
Oh.
So, but the 574 contour comes right off the side of the 2-bedroom unit where P5 is shown and heads towards the edge of the paper. The next sheet of the plan, you would see just off the edge of the paper, there is another 575 contour that directs the water the opposite direction. That is the high point. So there is virtually no drainage area at that point. I think, David, you want to go the other way? I think it's down.
Down.
David, do you mind giving me control for a minute? Just so I can, I mean, it's just kind of, there's a disconnect here and I just kind of want to.
Keep going, David, if you would. The next one.
Okay. Todd,
Okay.
I will gladly stop sharing my screen. If you have the plans available, it may make sense for you to bring them up on your own screen, so that way you can show with your own cursor what you're trying to point out to Mr. Trinkus.
You can't just give me control on here? Or?
I unfortunately do not have that capability, it seems.
All right, well, now that we have this
Fine.
plan up, hopefully everybody can see the 574 contour that comes off the end of the building near P5. And it curls around and heads towards where P7 is.
Mhm.
However, there's also a 575 contour that is behind building A, and there's a very little spot right in between. That creates a high point because from there, between the two 575 contours, water to the right-hand side goes down towards the driveway. Water to the left goes down towards the septic system. That is the high point. And that's my point. There is a very limited area of the water that would come down this way.
I understand. I am following you.
May I finish, Todd?
No, I'm
really
just saying, I understand
excuse
that.
me. I'm a little tired of you interrupting.
Steve, I just saying, I follow you. That's what
Fine.
that's what I'm saying.
Good.
Well, that's been on the plan from day one, so it shouldn't have been an issue
I
as far as that goes.
I said I'm following you. I'm affirming what your point you're making, except for the fact if you want to finish, I didn't want to cut you off. I was affirming the point you were making.
There's no yard drain being proposed. The grading's staying as is. We can agree to disagree. That's fine. And that's the last comment I have on that particular point. You had a comment.
Well, we're here, Todd. What did you want to say? I don't
think we're going to have any productive dialogue. So there's no point in me making any comments further.
But your comment, I'm sorry, because of the back and forth. The comment you made before was
so right now, basically, from what I see, is he's saying there's going to be concentrated flow going towards the septic system, is what you also don't want to happen. And
well, from the high,
from the swale, it either goes towards the septic system
or
onto the driveway, which both of which you don't want.
Okay.
So I guess that's just my point. I'm not trying to make an argument here. I'm just trying to lay out the facts and understand and have the commission understand what's happening. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on from that point. Your other comment was there was a section of the HDP pipe that was shown curved following the curb line. You claim the manufacturer says it can't be deflected. The reality is, yes, it can be deflected. We have done this in the past, but on the plans that I sent at the end of the day today, I made the pipe straight. So it's a moot point. The spillway comment where I stated that dirt, as far as the berm, is on the front edge of the riprap spillway, is what I stand by. I have designed spillways since the early 80s when detention became a requirement in Reading, which was the first town, I believe, in the state that required detention ponds, and we've never had an issue. The pond was also approved as part of the wetlands permit. Under the next comment, the Milo and McBroom comment number 19, he talks of the hydraulic grade line within the pond and that it could push water laterally into the slopes as it rises above the low flow orifice. That is not going to occur because the hydraulic grade line in the pond is the water surface elevation. Water knows how to do two things in life. It goes from an area of high energy to low energy, clearly uphill or downhill. To push into the soil is a lot more resistance to flow. So simply as the water rises in the pocket pond, it does not push laterally into the slopes because that is not the path of least resistance for the water to go. It will go to the outlet. As stated on this plan and as stated previously, if bedrock is encountered, we're over excavating the rock and putting in a basically clay fill to compact it to seal off the ledge rock. So this will not infiltrate because it is a permanent pool in a pocket pond as far as that goes. I assume with your guardrail comment number 21, you're talking about the left-hand side of the driveway on top of the retaining wall. I don't believe it was stated which side it was. There's a 5-foot shoulder before we get to the wall. We're not going to put a guardrail on it. There's no evidence submitted that driving up this driveway at 5 to 10 miles an hour is a safety issue with the guardrail. If the commission chooses to require a guardrail from station, I believe 1+75 to I think you said 2 + 50. Fine, we'll put it in. But there is no need for one in my professional opinion.
Mr. Trinkus, do you mind holding for a quick second? We have someone on here carrying on a side conversation. If you would be kind enough to mute yourself. Thank you, Steve.
No problem. Are we good to go again, Pat?
Yes.
Mr. Trinkus, if you don't mind, as you go through each of your comments, do you mind telling me which page I should go to so that the
Yeah,
commission and
I
the
will,
public
David.
can
Yeah.
follow? Thank
This
you.
one's actually good for right now. So
Okay.
the number 23 of Todd's letter was about mailboxes. There's no requirement in the regs to show mailboxes at the bottom of the hill. Likely, based on other projects Tim has done, it's a mailbox up at the units with the mailboxes for all the units. So the postal guy goes up the driveway, delivers all the mail for that. But again, there's no requirement to show that. Also, there's no requirement for a directional arrow. There likely would be a sign saying, units, well, I guess, addresses, 100 to 109, Shelley Road, all even numbers are all odd, somewhere at the bottom of the hill so that the fire knows where it is. But again, there's plenty of space. The right-of-way line to Shelley Road is approximately 19 feet off the edge of the pavement. So whether the sign goes in the right-of-way beyond the sight line or within the property, there's plenty of locations for it. But again, that's not a public health or safety issue, and there's no requirement. He also requested a stop bar and a stop sign. Again, this is a driveway, not a road. None of the 8-3G we have done in Bethel, 49 Taylor Avenue or 91 Worcester, which have more units than here, have either a stop sign or a stop bar. If you put it on this driveway, then I would suspect you should put it on every other driveway in the town of Bethel. He asked about design speed for the driveway. There is no standard for design speed for a driveway. I actually Googled this and looked for all kinds of resources to see if I could find anything, and there was nothing. And again, it's a common sense approach. And as I pointed out earlier, most people probably drive 5 to 10 miles an hour up and down their driveways. That's the reality. And there's no reason to suspect that this would be any different. Again, they asked for the centerline radius, as I pointed out in prior responses regarding the fire department. The critical curve is about halfway up. And I guess, David, if you would go back up the driveway. Yeah, that would keep going. Right there, David. If you scroll, I guess, up a little bit, David. So yeah, this curve here on the inside radius, the one on towards the bottom of the page, that is 36 feet. For the fire truck, requires a 22.5-foot radius. So we're 13.5 foot bigger than was necessary for the emergency vehicle to go up and down the hill. The center line radius is meaningless and is not a public health or safety issue. The geometry meets the International Fire Code, which is the controlling document here for the movement of emergency vehicles up and down the driveway. Under comment number 30, which I just have to go back to that comment about the sight line. I already discussed that, how it was measured in the field. That's discussed in my revision letter of 9/29 under the traffic engineer's comments. Again, school buses will not go up the driveway. The kids will be driven down or walk down to the bus. Years ago, it was very common. This was an occurrence where I lived in Reading. We lived up a dead-end road, and all of us walked down the hill to the main road with the other neighborhood kids. We probably had 30 kids at a singular bus stop, and we walked up and down the road. I know that's not what the kids do today. They generally get driven up and down their driveways by mom or dad. Again, no guardrail is necessary in my professional opinion. If the commission wants us to put one between 175 and 250 on the left-hand side of the road at the top of the retaining wall, we can do that, but it is clearly not needed, nor is the current plan unsafe in any form or fashion. And Pat, that goes through all of my comments in the revision letter, which was submitted at the end of the day.
All right, I do have a question, and We have the September 28th from Tom Galliford, and then we have the Frederick Clark letter as well from September 8th. Did you address all of the comments that were in the Frederick Clark letter?
Yes, I did, Pat.
Okay,
That's in the first part of the.
right,
letter
yeah,
that
because
was
I
submitted.
was just looking through here and they were looking for turning templates.
And I provided one at the bottom of the hill to show how the fire truck can come off Shelley Road into the site. David, the other way, back to the pond one.
They were looking for the largest vehicle and whether they're delivery trucks.
The aerial truck is bigger than delivery trucks. And as I said previously in my response to the fire marshal, that one curve that I just showed you is the only curve that is anywhere close to the minimum radii. You don't need a track movement of a driveway for vehicles. You look at the limiting factor perhaps, which is not really limiting in this case because it exceeds the minimum requirements. So showing the turning templates on the plan doesn't show anything. Any vehicle, the fire truck, a UPS truck, an oil truck, a garbage truck can go up this driveway with no problem on the geometry that is being proposed. It is no way unsafe, and quite honestly, driveways in Bethel, a singular driveway that would only be 12 foot wide is not necessarily under these limitations of curves. We have made this because it's an 8-30G conform to the International Fire Code, which is a higher standard than you would have in any town for residential driveways.
Because I did notice what they're saying is they had concerns for motorists traveling down the driveway towards Shelley, that this motorist in certain locations will not have pavement area to maneuver around an emergency vehicle. Do you disagree with that? An emergency vehicle traveling at a normally higher rate of speed.
I will tell you, you have a very heavy fire truck going up a 12% grade. He is not going to be running 30 or 40 miles an hour up this driveway. He might have a high rate of speed on Shelley Road, but not on this driveway. Furthermore, in the event there is a fire in these units, the people are going to leave the units and get out of the area before the emergency vehicles get up there. That is common sense. And even if not, the fire truck will stay in its lane and a car can come down. A car is less than 8 foot wide. The fire truck is no more than 8 foot wide, and you have a 10-foot travel lane. So 8 foot easily fits within 10.
So then you're disagreeing with the Frederick Clark letter.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I've designed many 8-30G with this type of standard, and we have not had any issue with people coming in or out with other vehicles, larger vehicles going in the opposite direction.
Okay. Beth, did you want to say something?
Well, if you're on that topic, let's stick to it for a few minutes. The Fire Marshal, Tom Galliford, is the emergency manager coordinator and has a lot of expertise in the field of safety. And I'm just looking at one of his memos, and he's asking, we agree that we've requested the approach angle information to determine if the fire apparatus can safely enter off of Shelley Road onto the proposed access road, and this information was not provided.
It's provided on the plans which were sent to you late this afternoon, Beth.
Okay, thank you. Also, I mean, you know, his issues are pretty consistent, and he's been asking for them since the end of June. Along those same lines, the commission and myself are thinking, well, is he being unreasonable? Is he being unreasonable asking for this type of information? Because we were getting the sense from the applicant that, hey, look, I'm doing this. I put it on the plan. Here it is. And Tom is asking for a separate layer showing the complete turning radius and vehicle movements from Shelley to the proposed units. This should also be provided on a clean layer to provide a clear plan view.
We
Okay.
provided
So that prompted us to take it the step further, and everybody's got the memo in regards to, okay, let's get the traffic experts in here, because the traffic experts are the one that are going to help us make a final determination, is this safe? So we did. And maybe Mr. Marcus wants to go into this a little bit more too, but we'll deal with that part of it later. So I don't believe that the commission is asking for too much. Is this driveway safe? In dealing with the driveway, Steve has again said it's a driveway, 20 foot in width to meet the state fire code or the international fire code. But the interesting part is, excuse me? I'm sorry, it must have been backfeed. The interesting part is that you're saying it's a driveway. Okay, it's a driveway. 12% grade is the maximum grade in the zoning regulations. I agree, 12% grade is the maximum grade in the zoning regs. But when you look at this driveway, when I see 12% grade, and I've been doing this for 20 years, driveways, 12%. It's 12%, meaning a driveway is flat. This is curving and it's got interior curves with higher grades and exceeding 12%. And Todd, I'm going to ask you to pipe in if I'm incorrect on the, go up to the right, the sharpest corner. David, if you can. And I think that's something like 15.
Right there, up that sheet, David.
So, I mean, yes, our zoning regulations state specifically, the maximum grade of a driveway is 12%. It's not average grade, it's the maximum grade. It's a driveway, 12 foot paved, 12%. But
Let
then
me address that.
I recall you saying, Steve, you know, you talked about a crown and the 12% is that the crown, well, crowns are in roads. They're not in driveways.
With all due respect, Beth,
Please, go ahead.
you're incorrect. A driveway or a road is designed on a center line basis. That's how it is designed. That's how it is measured. This goes back to the early days of what was termed route surveying, back into the 1940s. The design is the center line of the road. Obviously, on any curve, the outside of the curve is flatter than the design grade, and the inside of the curve is slightly steeper than the design grade. That's simply how it works. But from if this was a road, which it is not, and it was constructed, an as-built was done, they're measuring the center line of the grade, and that determines compliance with the design. Not the edges, not the inside of the curve, it is the center line. So I know Todd disagrees with me on this point, but this is the design basis, and it's been this way for years and years. And that's how it is. It is the center line. That's the grade that's measured. Your regulations do not say it's the edge, it's the center line, but the center line from a design standpoint is the controlling grade for any type of horizontal geometry and vertical geometry.
Thank you, Steve. Do you have anything that you can help me better understand?
Well, I mean, I would just say that, you know, I think everybody acknowledged that around these curves, on the inside of the curve, it's going to be steeper than 12%. And sorry, I thought I was muted for a second there. And so basically, in that curve we were focused on the screen, I mean, I think that was 16% on the inside where a wheel would travel down, and that's traveling down this driveway. So when you go down, when you're on a downward slope on 12%, then you're going to come around a curve where you would actually want, and Steve, actually, in a lot of cases, when you design, like you said, center line geometry, when you go around curves, you actually flatten out around curves because of the potential for, you want, we're getting too much background noise here.
Yeah, we can hear.
Awful lot.
Excuse me, anybody who's listening to this meeting, if you would be kind enough to mute yourself because we're getting a lot of feedback. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So, you know, going up this driveway or down this driveway, wherever you have an inside curve, you're going to, as Steve said, you're going to have more. So it's not a little bit less or more. It's, you know, going from 12% to over 16% in this case. So that, I mean, that's, you could call it a little bit more, but it's also in the wheel path coming down down a 12% driveway. So as far as, and coming around a 90-degree curve, almost a reverse curve, it's very sharp. So that's something to consider. If you're talking about the town regulations and not exceeding 12%, well, you could also say that not exceeding 12% means don't exceed 12%.
Yeah,
anywhere
that's how I've looked
on the
at it.
driveway. I mean, there's no, if there's no center line criteria of a driveway, because typically, in my experience, I've never provided, you know, a typical residential driveway that's maybe, you know, less than 100 feet long or whatever. I mean, you just show the limits of it and you show the grade lines. I mean, you're not providing a profile of it. But because this is an 800, 900 foot long driveway up a pretty significant slope, and it's going to have two-way traffic and multiple units, obviously you have to design a more robust, I call it roadway, to access it. You could call it a driveway. But as I've said previously, you call what you want, but it's designed as a road. I mean, you don't want to call it that, that's fine. It's got commercial catch basins, it's got a crown, it's got gutter lines, it's got, you know, it's got everything that a road would have, except safety devices such as guide rails. And you know, there hasn't been a sightline analysis to make sure that there's safe stopping distance. But in this case, it's going to function as a roadway for, as I've mentioned, families of 9 separate units. It's going to have delivery trucks, garbage trucks. It's going to have emergency vehicles, everything, plows in the winter, to maintain this access way, roadway, driveway. So to consider all things, certainly safety is, you know, foremost, to make sure that there's not going to be any issues on this driveway. And if you think that somebody's going to be driving down or up this driveway that looks like a road at 5 or 10 miles an hour, I don't think that's reasonable. I understand the burden is being put on the town for safety issues, and that's something the town has to consider in the next steps.
Thank you, Todd. Can I continue, Pat?
Yes.
Please.
Make sure, okay. In regards to, Steve made a reference to 91 and 49 Taylor Avenue as far as stop bars and stop signs and things of that nature. You're basically talking about flat areas. In one instance, the driveway is very flat going in there. In the other instance, you're going directly into a parking lot. Here we're talking over, I don't know, at least a 700 foot long road access way. And in particular, some of the grades leading down to the roadway with a stop bar and a stop sign. I don't think that's unreasonable to ask for. But at the same time, I think that we will leave it to the experts that have determined these items in the past. The commission has used Frederick Clark Associates to help with guiding safety issues and traffic issues and things of that nature. So I think that Mike Galante will be able to put a lot of that to bed once the information he needs is received, and we will make arrangements to ensure that he receives that information. So moving on a little bit more in regards to the site plan, I just want to talk about the easement area. I believe Todd mentioned it in his engineering report. We've mentioned, I agree with Todd on this matter, that it would be nice if you just show us where the easement is. It's very simple. It can be pulled from the survey map that's there, include it, because at this time too, I note for the record that we have a letter from the Newtown Forest Association dated September 16, 2020. As far as the easement area and the uses of that easement area, I would request that our council look at that and to address their concerns. They're requesting that the stormwater management plan should not encroach into the easement area. I think that that's difficult to determine when you don't have the easement area clearly defined on the site plan. So I would ask that that be corrected. Also, in regards to the health department, or let's just go back to the site development plans again. I'm sorry. It's been clearly stated that the plans are difficult to read. And I just want to note for the record, although the majority of an email that was sent by the applicant was in regards to another application, there was a reference here to one of the commission members talking about squiggly lines and not being able to read the plans. I just want to clarify a little bit something of where that probably was coming from, because I think it was one of the newer members of the commission that might have mentioned that. And I just want to note for the record that it's not an unreasonable request to ask for a legend, to ask for things to be shown with symbols and definitions on the map. I refer the commission to something that the state legislator is looking at on a permanent basis, and that's to require all commission members to use the Land Use Academy, Yukon Clear, which sponsors. And I just want to note in the record that in the drive, it's very basic. It tells you exactly what a legend is, why you need legends, how to read maps, plans, and it's a very, very basic principles of site plan designing. And I think if that type of information was provided from day one, it would have been easier for the commission to decipher some of the layers of the map with clear defining symbols and definitions of what those areas are. That also can be found in there. At the same time too, I think that puts that issue to bed regarding that item. And let's see. The health department, I just want to clarify with the commission that the health department is still working on this application. I believe they were out there last week for a site walk. I believe they probably will be going out again for another site walk. And they have talked to me, and they have pretty much said that they will have their final reports and findings available the first or second week of October. And I believe that's all I have at the moment, outside of discussing a little bit what I think this discussion tonight has even called for, more so that we need to have an expert in dealing with safety and traffic issues within the driveway access way itself, turning maneuverabilities. We need to satisfy the fire marshal, and in order to do that, or not satisfy the fire marshal, I'm sorry, to help the fire marshal come to a determination if there is enough information available in order for him to consider the proposed site plan under health and safety issues. So in order to do that, we did ask the applicant to, using our regulations, to, we had a proposal put together by Frederick Clark Associates. We asked the applicant to pay for the fee. Attorney Marcus, can you just clarify whether or not the applicant is going to do it? I'd be surprised if he doesn't. It'd be the first time in the history of any 30Gs that we've had that we did not have the cooperation of the applicant in helping us with some of these fees.
Is that a question? I don't have
My question's to you, Neil.
What's that?
My question was for you. Can you help with that?
I have just literally seen the proposal from Michael Lanti for services. The statute, again, talks about getting different types of proposals as to how the applicants are paying for consultants. But when you come into the burden of proof changing, it switches in an 8-30G. The real question is, does there have to be a clearly defined safety issue? And I know we've had a lot of discussion this evening, but nothing has been clearly defined. So, for example, I've heard a lot of discussion with the two site engineers, Steve and Todd, about how you measure the grade of a road, but nobody has put a regulation out on the table. So before we determine whether there are any really safety issues that require a more advanced study and determine who's paying for it, the first thing I'm going to suggest, and I was going to wait till my turn to summarize where the applicant is this evening, but one of them is that there's this lot of anecdotal back and forth. Of course, there's not a lot of courtesy either, so it's all at the same time. Whether driveways are in fact graded with a crown. Quite honestly, my driveway is, and for reasons of drainage. But and how you actually measure, and what is the standard to determine the safety, and what, of course, not only the standard, but what's the standard in Bethel? What do your driveway regulations say about how you measure the grade of a driveway? It just says 12%. How do you determine that? So there's a lot that needs to be resolved before we determine A, whether there really is a safety issue, and B, at that point, under 8-30G, who has to prove it? And the question is, who has the burden of proof? That it either is a safety issue, in which case then the applicant has to come up with what would be reasonable conditions to address it. So at the moment, the answer to your question is, Beth, I don't have enough information to even make a recommendation to my client as to whether they should consider to be responsible. And so somewhere at the end of this meeting, I'm hoping that that the town will ask Malone McBroom to come up with the regulation in Bethel, or a regulation that's acceptable by road builders as to how you measure the grade. Because quite honestly, as town council in Fairfield, we've had this issue, and between you and me, we measure the grade on the center line of the road. And if we're doing it wrong, I'd like to know why we're doing it wrong. But that would be, I'm perfectly open-minded. But at the moment, all I hear is a lot of argument and no factual basis upon which to make a decision. So we'll get back to you on that issue when we've had a chance to see why the town thinks that the way Steve Trinkus measures grade, and why the town thinks that the way Steve Trinkus does grading of a crown in a driveway doesn't meet an accepted standard, A, in Bethel or somewhere else. Show us what we're looking at. So I'll get back to you on that. I haven't foreclosed the idea.
I can just make the suggestion, Neil, that you could focus on the grade and the 12% and things of that nature. But I'm looking at Tom Galliford, our fire marshal, who I respect very much, who's looking for information, and he's still stating he's not receiving it, and he's agreeing with some of the information that Mr. Galante is looking for in order to come to some conclusions. So I think based on that we could come to some conclusions tonight as far as, you know.
Yeah, no, but again, Beth, Tom Galliford, again, I haven't talked to him, but for example, the question of turning into the driveway with as Steve talks about, the aerial truck, the 39-foot truck, and making the turn in from Shelley Road into the driveway. I'm not sure that that's a safety issue as much as a convenience issue, because quite honestly, if there really were a problem, we'd put mountable curbs in. We deal with that all the time. There are ways to address it, but we don't think it's necessary here.
Neil,
but,
I beg to differ with you.
What's that?
You're very good at representing many different people, and you're quite knowledgeable. But at the same time, I'm looking. This is the town of Bethel's fire marshal.
Yeah.
He's making to me, it's a simple request.
Yeah. No. But I'm saying there are ways there's a number of ways to address it, and we'll talk to him. We will meet with him.
Just for the record, the Bethel fire truck, the largest, is 47.25 feet long.
Is that, how are we measuring that? Wheelbase or to the end of the ladder?
That's the actual truck from tip of ladder to the very rear.
Well, I think that's what Steve was saying. It's 39 feet plus you add about 8 feet for a ladder. You're right on the same number. Yeah, we agree.
I'm just putting it out there, just so that moving forward, we're on the same page. That's all.
Did you know, Todd, that the measurement, the movement measurement is definitely usually based on a wheelbase?
Yes, of course. But what the fire marshal is requesting is that movement actually be shown on the plan.
Okay.
Up the driveway and down the driveway.
I mean, he's asked for that since June.
Yeah,
this is a very standard thing. We do it here at Malone McBroom all the time, and we're asked to do it all the time. So I don't know why it should be an issue.
I mean, but in reality, you know, unfortunately, if you come to your neighboring towns, for example, if you look at Gallows Hill Road or Limekiln Road in Reading, where fire trucks do go up and down it all the time, you'll see that they've got grades that exceed 12%, and they got roads that are narrower than 20 feet, and it's done. And so it hasn't created any safety.
Correct.
So
But some of a
that's
lot
what-
of those, yeah, correct. I mean, there are issues like that. We all acknowledge that.
They were
I'm only again just kind of reiterating. That's what the fire marshal asked for. It's
Yep.
not something that's insurmountable. That's all.
No,
And at
we'll
our
deal
last
with it.
meeting,
We'll deal with it.
Neil, at our last meeting,
Okay.
we discussed this at our last meeting. And
Yeah.
based on some of our discussions at the last meeting, you were basically in agreement that, Mike Galante, he can help us.
I'm saying that's not your question. I'm not saying Mike can't help you. I'm not sure he's necessary.
Okay, we're just
But-
talking about paying. That's
Yeah.
all we're talking about then.
Well,
So-
forget, I mean, that's the least of our concerns. Quite
No,
honestly,
it's
when
the
it comes
most-
to an application for health and safety, the question of who's paying the experts is not the issue. But we'll address that. I will not leave you stranded on that issue. We'll get you an answer.
You should also read the police commission report, which I haven't heard referred to here tonight, where the police commission said they recommend that developer do a traffic study on the road because they have questions about the road too from their meeting of July 24th, 2020.
Traffic study on Shelley Road
Yes, on Shelley Road from the police commission.
for 9 units.
They,
Okay.
read the police commission. I'm sure you have it, Neil.
Yeah, but I thought they then backed off and said that wasn't necessary, but
No,
I
I
didn't-
didn't know.
yeah.
Not,
Okay,
not in my notes, it isn't.
okay. Well, we'll take a further look at it.
I have something.
It would be unusual to add 9 units of multifamily
Maybe it's
housing.
because of the length of the driveway or road. I've heard 700, 800, I heard 900. I'm not sure exactly how long it is anymore.
Huh, okay, we'll get you that.
I have something to add to that.
Sure.
So this came into the Bethel Police Commission. This is a report that says, Tim Draper and Ethan Draper of 36 Aunt Patty's Lane West came to find out why a traffic study was requested for 47 Shelley Road project.
Oh, okay.
Chairman Rubino agreed to add it to the agenda. Peter Valenti made a motion to put 47 Shelley Road on the agenda under old business.
What meeting is this?
What?
When was the date of this meeting?
September 16th, 2020.
Okay, we don't have that yet.
And who's speaking now? I'm sorry, I'm getting a horrible echo.
That was Steve.
I'm sure it's Mr. Trinkus. It sounds like his voice.
No, it's not me.
Ethan Draper.
No, it's Junior.
Oh, I'm sorry. You sound like Mr. Trinkus.
Sorry, Ethan, you sound like Steve Trinkus.
You do.
Thank you.
In an echo chamber.
All right, so I just have one little thing to read about this.
Please.
So 47 Shelley Road. A motion to repeal the request for the traffic study was made by Chairman Rubino, second by Commissioner Colwitz.
And this is from September 16th.
Correct.
I'll have to look that up. Thank you.
And by the way, it's Neil again. Kitty, that was my understanding. That's why I'm saying I
I don't
didn't
have
realize
that.
they were
I'm
looking
asking.
for a traffic study. But anyway,
Yeah, I don't have that, so.
well, that's the problem. There's a lot of information that's, scattered in this application.
Well, there's a lot of information. That's the problem. Go right ahead.
Yes.
Sorry, forgive me.
So are there further questions of Steve Trinkus on his report, on his reports at this
What?
time?
I think the public has to go first, right?
Well, wait a
No,
minute.
no, no.
I
I'm trying to
apologize. I do have a question. It's Pat. Would it be out of the realm to take the Frederick Clark letter of September 8th and respond to each of the issues that are in this letter?
I hope so.
Because when, and Steve, I'm sorry, but when you're talking to things that exist in emails and letters, it's difficult because you're reading to find out exactly what was requested and then you're getting your answers.
Right.
If you could take that Frederick Clark letter, and such as item 1 was site access roadway, and they had concerns, and if you could address exactly what they're asking for, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, and if you're disagreeing with it, just let us know why. Is
It's
that
in-
something you
In
can do?
writing.
in the September 29th letter submitted at the end of the day today. I did respond to their points.
To everything in the Frederick Clark September 8th letter? Okay,
Many of those actually were previously brought up by Todd in earlier memos in front of this commission to some degree or another.
okay. Then we'll take a look at that. And then if there are some things that appear not to be answered, then we'll just come back and request a response to them.
That would be fair. That would be fair.
Thank you.
So,
Chuck Andrus, attorney for the commission. Madam Chair, I had a question for Mr. Trinkaus.
Yes.
Mr. Trinkaus, I'm just to make clear, because we're probably going to, continue the public hearing, that you submitted some plans today. And I originally was under the impression that the only difference was that these were signed, so you satisfied that. But then I think you mentioned a couple of times during your presentation that you made a few other additions. I don't know if you changed the date because we don't want to mess up the plans. They still have the same July 16th date on them. But perhaps you can summarize what the changes are. I thought you said there was a curve, there was a pipe that was deflected. You mentioned something about the providing some templates on one of the plans. Maybe just summarize, so when the commission, because the commission doesn't have them, and what Dave's putting up is the old plans, what are the revisions that you've submitted today?
Very simple, Attorney Andrews. The pipe that was shown on the parallel to the curb line on a curve has now been made straight between the two catch basins. Doesn't change the hydraulics or anything else. And then we provided the fire truck turning template from Shelley Road turning into the access driveway, and that would be shown on the fire truck plan, which is the last sheet of the plan set. Those were the only two changes. Additionally, going back to the comment Beth made about the easement was shown on the earlier set of plans. It's 25 feet in width, parallel to the southern boundary of the site from Shelley Road up to the open space. And if you look at any of the plans, there is a very steep rocky slope in the middle of that, which quite honestly is very hazardous to try and go up and down. But the easement is 25 foot. And the proposed pond, while some grading beyond the berm is within the easement area, it does not compromise or reduce pedestrian access, because those areas will simply be vegetated and actually be a little more open than they currently are today.
Chuck Anders again, for the record. And Mr. Trinkaus, you say so the easement is shown on the plans? Because I don't remember seeing it.
Yes, it is on the site development plan. Yes, it is, Chuck.
So what sheet is that?
It would be on any of them. This would be this plan set that I sent on September 25th. It's a dashed line that runs parallel to the southern property line, 25 feet parallel to the line. That's what it is.
Okay, so that when we see that dashed line on the plans, you're saying that shows the dimensions of the easement.
Correct.
So Chuck, how do you want us to document these plans, because they don't have the latest revision date and revisions were made?
That's
I'm just throwing it out there, just for the record, so we can get the record straight. I was under the impression initially that it was just the previous set that was signed and sealed, but it sounds like we have a few revisions, which, I mean, that's fine. I just want to make sure that the record's straight.
Todd, I was hopeful, and Chuck, I was hopeful to get comments from Health Department today, and we didn't. So when and if we get comments from Health, we will provide a revised set with a revision date. Since I only made those two changes, I did not change the date, simply because they're really minor, didn't change anything per se on the plan.
Steve, is it acceptable for the commission or Beth to add some sort of markup on the set? Just having a date of today.
Put it on, sure.
Is that okay? Again for.
Yeah.
I didn't do that because I was hopeful to have additional comments and put a revision date on.
Understood.
Yeah, I think, again, for the record, if I can, it's Neil Marges, that we make a note submitted on this date as opposed to revised, because then it's a submission date we'll know what we're talking about.
Well, I guess you could put both, just because it is revised as well. It's not just submitted, so.
Yeah, but
I'm
Steve's got
sorry.
review.
Nonetheless,
fully
you could,
revised.
yeah, I just,
I'm
whatever,
going to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt all the professionals, and I apologize.
The
But it's
record keeper, what do you want to do?
Revision dates on the plans. Period. End.
I'll
Not
put
submitted.
tomorrow's date on and send you a new set of.
Whatever.
Okay,
It's
Fine.
just so much easier when you're making any type of a decision. You can refer to the plans, refer to the revision dates. You can go back and look and see, oh, yes, we talked about this on that. It's, believe me, just go with it.
that's understood, but these are still part of the record.
Absolutely.
So my point is for these today,
I will
because they're
mark
not
on
going
them.
to be, that's all I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm going to suggest that the revision date be today, if that's when they're revised.
That's fine too. But we're not taking these other ones off the record. So just for now, Beth, you could just put something on there. That's all.
Yes, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Beth, I have a question. Are we taking public input tonight or just commission members?
Oh, definitely, please do.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. I'd like to open this up now to public input. There's a spot at the bottom of the page where you can do a hand raise. You'll see where it shows participants. And open that up if you wish to have a question. David, are you seeing anybody?
I am not at this time, and just to embellish on your instructions, Ms. Rist, if I may, what she is referring to for the members of the public is by clicking on the participants icon in the toolbar that appears at the bottom of your screen, by bringing your cursor there, you would bring your cursor next to your name in the participants toolbar that appears on the right hand of the screen. There should appear next to your name, by bringing your cursor to it, an icon that says raise hand. Trying to unmute yourself or show yourself on your camera as you having your raised hand. We will not, we would prefer not to recognize that way. I see two people that have their hands raised already. We will accept comments in order. Ms. Rist, I see we have an Erin O'Mara first. I will unmute her and go ahead.
Hi, this is Brendan O'Mara with my wife Erin. We're the adjacent property owners at 43 Shelley Road. And just a couple of questions and comments. At the last public hearing, I expressed our concerns around the public health, or our personal health and safety related to our water systems, with a shallow well at about 140 feet, about 50 to 60 feet from the property line, which is going to be very close to this pocket pond, with a lot of fractured rock and ledge in the area and some more excavation work to be done. Very concerned about the safety of our well, and also 4 extra wells tapping into the same aquifer, what it might do to our water level in our home. Also, the way that property line is at an angle, the proposed septic areas for some of these units is directly uphill. And even if it is within setback regulations, I think that's probably more typical for more level land rather than sloped rocky areas. I will say, as far as Newtown's concerned, I can't speak for the Forest Commission, but we've definitely seen hikers in all areas of this. So for someone to make an assumption that something is steep or rocky, I wouldn't bet on it around here, because we do have a lot of people who like to walk in all areas of these woods. I did hear the engineer for the applicant talk about it not being a subdivision, then talking about a driveway with a subdivision where buses go up and down, but they wouldn't go up and down. Moms would drive kids up. I'll tell you, in this area, some of the bus stops are at Limekiln, and people from the very end of Shelley Road walk their children from the end of Shelley Road up to Limekiln to pick up the bus. It would not be unusual at all for someone. My wife and I walk up and down our driveway to get our kids. We have not an 800-foot driveway, but it's not a little short thing. I was out there in umbrellas in the rain today. I also was wondering if, even if there is 5 feet of walkway on either side of that proposed road up the hill, once it snows, so you get a couple of heavy snows, I'd imagine snow plows will push just to the edge of the pavement. That's going to reduce walkways even further. So I think that's something that should be considered as you guys are looking at the safety of the road too, although I'm clearly not an expert. And then lastly, I was not aware, nor did I see documentation on the town site, could be there, that the health department was going to walk the area too. I invite any member of planning, zoning, inland wetland, health, first selectman, anyone who wants to come can come walk our property line and see just how close the well is and the type of topography there that's proposed. And I would also add that for the record, we did also send in written correspondence of our concerns around the health and safety, most primarily, of course, for our family and our health related to the water systems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have a Gloria Whaley. Gloria Whaley, you are unmuted. Apart from Gloria Whaley, Ms. Rist, I am not seeing anyone else who has their hands raised for public participation. Would you prefer to try to keep the contents of this meeting going, or would you want to perhaps?
No, we're gonna move over.
Okay, excuse me, Pat, I do have a few other comments I just want to make in regards to the meeting. It's obvious that we're going to keep this continued and keep it open. In my opinion, as far as being a staff member and hearing the testimony this evening, I do think it is incumbent to continue using the services of Frederick Clark Associates if the applicant is in agreement to fund them or not. I would propose that we continue the public hearing until October 20th, which is the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. I've already spoken with Frederick Clark Associates, and Mike Galante will be able to attend. And I think with his attendance and the attendance of our engineer and our other experts, that we will be able to come to some conclusions.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Beth. All right, moving out to commission members. Kitty.
Okay, tell me something. What is the length of the driveway road? I've heard 700, 800, 900. What is the exact length?
Okay, Kitty.
I will answer that in 1 second. It's just in front of Unit C, Kitty, it is 976 feet.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
It is 976 feet to just in front of Unit C.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now, also, I've heard the road driveway is 20 feet wide.
Correct.
At one point, you were talking about 25 feet. And in the police commission letter, it says 22 feet. Hello, what is it?
I never said 25 feet. It has always been 20 from day one.
Oh, you mentioned 25 for some reason, but okay.
The easement area, Kitty, easement is 20, the pedestrian easement is 25 foot wide from the southern property line.
Okay. But the rest of it is 20.
The driveway is 20 foot top to bottom.
Okay. Okay. I'm also in favor of the sidewalk, but having said that, there is one thing I would like to ask, and I do have a copy of the plans and I've had them forever. And yeah, I don't want to be asking too much, but at the top where the dwellings are, normally in the plan, we have one page that shows where the buildings are. And it shows the living area, it shows landscaping. Your plans show nothing except a couple of boxes, 3 boxes, and that's it. Is there any way to get a more detail of exactly what, where the parking is? And do you have such a plan somewhere?
Kitty, the parking is shown on the plan. There are
Which page? Which page?
Any of them, and if you look at the one David showed where we were looking at the unit area, there is 1 parking space in each unit. It's a drive under, and then there is a space in front of the garage door, and they're labeled P1 all the way through P18, and then there are 3 visitor spaces also. On a site plan, we only show the footprint of the building. The architectural plans that were submitted do have a conceptual floor plan, but that is not fixed in stone as far as the internal layout. But that information is not shown on a site plan. It would make the plans literally unreadable.
All right, you're telling me then on the site plan, these parking spaces are shown somewhere on the site plan?
On all the plans, yes, they are.
Okay, can you tell me what page so I can, not for now, then I'll go back to it later. What page are these parking spaces shown on?
I will tell you in a second. Sheet number 7, sheet number 8.
Okay, I will go through those. And for right now, that's it, you know, everybody else is, we're waiting for the health department. I don't understand the police department. There are so many questions that I'm going to wait for the next time.
Thanks, Kitty. John?
I'm confused.
I don't have anything right now, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
1, 2.
Penny?
Yes, thank you. Okay, maybe I missed this, but 2 questions. You mentioned that kids no longer walk up and down the road, which is probably the case. How are cars going to turn around in what is, in actuality, a narrow driveway? That's question number 1. And question number 2 is, and I can probably find this answer, but actually 3 questions. Question number 2 is there a way to find out the difference in the driveway grade between this proposed plan and something like Drummers Lane off Route 53? Is there a way to find out what, because it's really a challenge for me to understand grading without being able to see something in comparison. So is this a grade? When I walked it, assuming that that's similar to what the grade is going to be, to me, that was much more like walking up Fawn Road in Bethel, which is near my house. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to find out what those different grades are.
Penny, if I can address that point, then I'll go back to your first one about
Okay, but I do have another question, Steve, so hold on one second. You mentioned that people will leave the area before emergency vehicles, and that may be the case, God willing. You do also mention that the fire truck will stay in its own lane while cars are coming down. Does that not pose a safety concern when you have potentially frantic homeowners or whatever these are, renters, people in cars, all trying to get down at the same time? There is, because it's a driveway, there is no center lane. That is a tremendous concern to me. Another, just more like a, really? You don't expect children to be playing on the driveway? The question is, really? And the reason I say that is I live near Fawn Road and Spring Hill Lane, and there are always children riding bicycles, playing skateboards, roller skates, the works, up and down Fawn Road, up and down Spring Hill Lane, which is a terrific skateboard road, which is really pretty terrifying. So my question for that is, really? So there you go. Those are my questions.
Okay, let me address first off, parents coming down the driveway, drop off their kids.
Okay.
They sit at the end of the driveway, and school bus comes, the kids get on the bus. They simply pull out in the road, and either they leave for work or they make a 3-point turn and go back up the driveway. In my neighborhood, actually, one of my neighbors who has a 300-foot rear lot driveway simply backs down his driveway after dropping his kid off. I wouldn't recommend that here, but people should do that because there's multiple vehicles in this case. But they will turn around on Shelley Road. That's what they will do. That's how it works. Regarding the driveway of a vehicle going up and vehicles coming down, again, there are ample, while there is that one turn, there are ample spots where the road is almost straight, and cars can pass on a normal basis. It's no different than passing a garbage truck or a fire truck on Shelley Road or any of the residential roads in the town of Bethel. Regarding how this driveway would compare to other roads in town, you mentioned Drummer. I don't know if planning and zoning or the town public works department has as-built drawings of those roads when they were constructed. That would show you what the constructed grade is, and then you would be able to, if it was 12%, you would know that that's what we're proposing here. If it was 10, you'd see that as
Right.
far as that goes.
Okay.
And, you know, in my comment regarding kids playing in the street on the driveway was more, you're not going to be playing, you know, kickball or other things on a 12% driveway grade. Is a kid going to ride down the driveway on a bike? Likely. They probably will do it on skateboards. Hopefully they're wearing helmets because it's a downhill run. It is not recommended, but kids do that on town of Bethel roads all the time. You can't prevent that as far as that goes. But my point was, you're not going to have kids playing a game of baseball on a road like my generation did when we had a flat road. We played in the middle of the road because it was flat. This is not a flat road to do that.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one follow-up question that I meant to ask before. Thank you for those answers. You say that 10 miles per hour for a driveway is really fine, and it's probably very fast for a regular driveway, for a regular house driveway. How do you imagine that's going to happen on an almost 1,000 foot driveway? Are you really expecting people to go 10 miles an hour?
People are going to drive what they're comfortable with, and that's an individual decision. We can't control it. Look at stop signs on roads. How many people obey a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on a residential road? You can probably count them on less than one hand. I live on a very flat road. My maximum grade's about 3%. And some of my neighbors, quite honestly, are going 35 or 40 miles an hour on that road when they leave early in the morning to go to work. Although there are people even walking at that hour. You can't control the human behavior. Again, there is no requirement. I Googled speeds for driveways, residential driveways. I did not come up with any kind of miles per hour as a suggested speed for a driveway. And that's all I can tell you.
I do understand that, but just to ask a simple question of practicality, if we know that people take Bethel streets much faster than they should, I can see what goes on here on Spring Hill Lane, with cars coming tearing down, you know, this decline here. Is it not prudent then to not invite that kind of scofflaw behavior with a road that long with that kind of grade?
Well, 1,000 feet is not that long in road terminology or even in a long driveway. We'd be happy to put a sign at the bottom saying 15 miles an hour. Whether people obey it or not, that's their personal decision. We have no objection to putting a sign up with that or putting a stop sign at the end with a stop bar. But whether people pay attention to it, that's beyond the applicant's control.
Okay, understood. All right, thank you, Steve. I appreciate your answers.
Thank you, Penny.
Excuse me, Pat, may I just make one little comment? in regards
Sure.
to this? Before Bob Legner jumps in and gets all over it, as far as roadways and things of that nature, you know, it should be noted that in our regulations, the length of a dead end road is 750 feet. And Mr. Legner will correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right.
And if you want to exceed that, it's a special exception through the Planning and Zoning Commission. So if you see something that's more than 750 feet, it's either very old or it was done under the rules with Bob Legnar. The other thing I just wanted to mention too was there was a discussion in regards to when you have a fire, everybody leaves. I believe that was basically what Steve was saying, you know, God forbid something happens on this site. everybody leaves. I would remind the commission that during the 830G review application of 49 Taylor Avenue, when I believe it was the fire chief that was there, the discussion was, and the statement was, when you have a fire, people, yes, they leave the structure that's under fire, but fires create people to come and observe, and they don't leave.
Thanks, Beth.
All right, Ken.
Steve, I got to commend you on your ability to defend the project. You really defended this very well. It's impressive.
Thank you.
It'd be good to get our final clarification on what the actual percent grade is from the experts down the road. You know, is it one tiny spot is 12% or 12.1, or what's the average? It'd be good to have that clarification when we get that at some point. If everyone wants to go over to Kingswood, there's a pretty steep road over at Kingswood, and I don't know what the grade is there, but that's probably one of the steepest roads in town. It'd be interesting to see what the actual percentage is there. Be a good comparison.
Road, not a driveway, Kenny.
Okay, it is. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Everybody can go up Kingswood, but there's two things to understand. Number one, it's a road. It's not a driveway. It's not an access way. Okay. Number two is that was built prior to the town of Bethel deciding, making changes to regulations pertaining to grade. That was built in the 70s. Neil, help me. Planned Building Group, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I used to know those guys.
And then when they started building these type of developments with these type of roadways and grades and things of that nature, that's when a lot of the rules changed, and that was used as an example. Thank you.
Yeah, by the way, just Ken, I believe that you're going to find Kingswood to be in excess of 12%.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
And by the way, the other thing, if you look at it, I don't think there's any incidents of fire trucks having difficulty on Kingswood, but we'll take a look at that too.
All right, Bob.
A couple of things. As long as we brought up Kingswood, they have a way in and out of there other than the single access. Number one. Secondly, we can't say with any degree of certainty that kids aren't going to walk up and down that driveway. So I'd be in favor of a sidewalk being put in or something done in that manner if this project has ever come to build, because you got to give them some place to walk. If they ride their bike down, if they ride a skateboard down, that's they're playing. But if they're walking to the bus or walking down or walking up with cars coming up, kids walking and cars don't mix very well. And nothing to say, you can say that one fire truck can get up there, safely and turn around and everything else. That's all well and good. Most fires don't take just one fire truck. They get multiple fire trucks to fires. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Rich.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, everybody. Applicant, Steve, thank you. Yeah, I would second the comment that Bob made. I think, like speculating about human behavior is fun and everything, but, providing a place for people to walk down a lengthy driveway is important. Not every parent can bring their kid down the driveway. Some people like to walk. I think that's something to consider given the length and sort of the run of that road, driveway, whatever you call it. Other than that, no substantial comments that haven't been answered already. So thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Linda.
I have nothing else right now.
Rob Wallace.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Stephen, for the and all the applicant representatives for the presentation. I don't really have any questions. I'm sticking a little bit on the slope issue and measuring from the center line. is there no compensation for, I don't know what you would call it, the cross slope or the banking angle of the road? Or, and not a road, I'm sorry, but a driveway?
Robert, Steve Trinkus, if I can address that. What you're asking about is called super elevation.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. I know the term. I was trying to come up with it. I had the other two.
Cross slope varies. Think of a racetrack that's super elevated.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we don't want a 45-degree bank on any road, so there's got to be some limit, right?
In this particular case, the pitch from the center line to both edges is 3/8 of an inch per foot, roughly 4/10 of a foot difference between the center line and the elevation at the curb line. It's not super elevated, and like I pointed out earlier, the inside of the curb is steeper, but center line is a design basis, and that's how it's measured.
Okay, that was that's good information. It's good to know the degree of super elevation that you've got there. That's my only question. Thanks all.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Beth, do you have anything else before we continue this?
No,
Beth,
not at the moment.
Okay, all right, then this public hearing will be continued to October 20th. Thank you all. Moving on, Oakwoods LLC, Tim Draper, 11 units, Connecticut State Statutes, 8-30G, Affordable Housing, 9 Good Hill Road. Attorney Marcus?
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I just have to switch files. I think that Mike Mizuko may have joined us. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm going back from my minutes of our last session, which I believe was the 28th of July. Is that when we're continuing from?
Right. You're right, Neil.
Yeah. There were a few questions that the commission wanted addressed. Without wasting a lot of time, can you pick up and tell the commission what you have provided them and what information you're still waiting for at this point?
You're talking to me, Mike, right?
Yeah, if you can, yeah.
Okay, sure. For the record, Mike Mizuko, representing the applicant. I had just a few issues that I had written down. One was, there was many comments about blasting, and as I had stated, that most of the site is being filled and blasting is not expected. The area where there was some deeper excavations for the sewer line, we do have some test holes over there that indicate that even there, rock should not be encountered due to the depth of the test hole that we dug. There was also a comment about additional or changing the plantings along the 9 and 11 Good Hill properties. And originally, we already had made a change. Originally, we had some spruce trees in there, and then we changed them to an Annerberry because they thought that there was a comment about the spruce trees being too large. And let me just share my screen.
Screen sharing privileges are enabled, Mr. Mizuko.
Okay, I'm sharing my AutoCAD screen because it's a little bit easier for me to maneuver around and pan and zoom. So the same drawings, it just looks a little bit different. And you can see my cursor is a square with a cross in the middle. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the area they were talking about in terms of the landscaping was this area in here. And there was a comment by one of the commissioners about changing to arborvitaes, and that's something we'll take a look at. There was also a request by staff for a hydrodynamic oil water separator, and we feel that for a project of this nature, which is residential, it's really not warranted. If it was a retail development or a drive-through or industrial use, it might be justified, but this type of development is very low risk for contaminants. We do have sumps on the catch basins, which we separated from the system. Originally, we had them over the top of the galleries. They're now separated with oil hoods. So we do have some protection. And I feel that it is my professional opinion that it's satisfactory to address the potential that may exist of a car leaking some oil. But when a car comes in, they park and they shut the engine off. Usually you find a lot of problems with drive-throughs or people that come in and retail where they come in and their engine's still running and they're just there for maybe a few minutes, 5 minutes. You can see oil strips on any of the drive-throughs at banking centers or Dunkin' Donuts, things like that. But you don't have that here. And also, most of the water draining to the parking and the drainage detention system is all either from the parking lot or the buildings, and the area draining to it is very, very shallow grade. It's almost, in the area of the parking lot, it's about 2% grade. That's pretty much the maximum that you would design for handicap accessibility. So it's a very mild grade, and even the driveway is only, I think, maximum 5% grade in the driveway, which is gentle to moderate. We also were asked to look at some light spillage. There was a concern for this light onto the adjoining property, and we still need to do that. And then there was a question about the drainage pipe under the building. And as I have stated, pipes under buildings occur all the time via plumbing, vent lines, water lines. Drainage lines are not as common, but in commercial work, they're more common than residential. But I worked on a project recently in Danbury where we had to get drainage from the back of the building to the detention system in the front of the building. And the only way to do it, because the grade dropped off, was we ran a pipe through the building similar to this. So we can take a look at some other options. I mean, if there's a real concern, that you could always just put concrete on the sides and the top just to protect it, or you can go with a little bit heavier pipe. There was also a concern for the soil stockpiles that we had in the front. We're going to take them off the plan when we revise them, and we'll just move them to the back of the site or just take them off. Most of the site is being filled, as I mentioned. So more material will be brought in, dumped, and spread immediately. And then after everything is done, they'll bring in topsoil and seed and hay. But the demand for large stockpile areas is not needed. And then there was another comment about a play area, and we did have one initially in the back of the longer L, say behind units 3, 4, and 5, but it was recommended by the environmental consultant because of the vernal pool that's in this area to not have any light or audio noise, light pollution or audio noise there. So we took the playground off. And the applicant is concerned about the liability with a playscape, especially if it's in a remote area. So I don't know what can become of that. And I know there was also talk about, we did provide the profile going across. I'll show you that line is section BB, which goes through here out to Good Hill Road. And that is shown here, and I put in the approximate building height and the building height for the house at 11 Good Hill. There was a request to, or somebody had asked about doing another one for the other property, but I can just tell you by the topography, just go to the watershed because it shows more of the topography off-site. You can see that the grade jumps up severely in this area where this house, which is 13 Good Hill. But if you look at that grade, you're at around 552 in this area here. And the top of our buildings are around 542. So you're almost 10 feet over at the base of their house to the above the peak of the roofs for this development. So we didn't provide another pile through there. It just didn't seem like it made any sense because of the severity of the grade. And then the only other thing that I just had was we tried to do a site walk that time, and it was requested to do some clearing in there. I just hoping that maybe we can schedule a site walk and the applicant can trim back or cut down and make it accessible so we can get that done. And then the only other question, I know there was some balloons that had been requested. I just would like to know how many. So that's kind of where we are with the items that I had as to be addressed, unless I missed something.
Mike, I think you covered the ones that we had open from the last meeting. And again, I'm looking at the memorandum from Wright Pierce on July 27. And I think that we've addressed, a lot of what's in that memo was just commenting on changes that we'd already addressed.
That's correct.
Yeah, at this point, unless the commission has questions, we have really very little more to add to the application. So we'll not belabor the evening if there's nothing else to be discussed.
It's Pat. I just would like to make a couple of comments.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we want to do a site walk. We need the area mowed. So when that can happen, we can give you a date to set up a site walk and just have that area mowed for us when we come out there, that it's done.
Hey, Pat, have we determined that the Inland Wetlands Commission is not going to have a problem with that? Because I was at the meeting when they told us until you get, permits to work on the site, don't do anything, don't touch it literally.
Well, I think, Neil, if you want to continue to belabor this, I'd be more than happy to continue to do it. But if you look at the memo I wrote in regards to the site walk and all that other nonsense that we're trying to accomplish here in regards to the email that was sent to us by the applicant, I think we covered pretty much what we're asking for, what we want done. And in regards to the Inland Wetlands Commission, I attended most of those meetings. And with the Inland Wetlands Commission telling them, David, maybe you can mention this also, there was an illegal activity that took place on the property. It was the deposition of Phil. And I'm sure that the Inland Wetlands Commission was very firm when they were talking to the applicant after that happened.
They were more than firm.
Correct. And Beth, I'm happy to weigh in on this if I may.
I'm just saying, the only thing I'm asking you to do, David, is to just say yes or no. Is it an issue with the Inland Wetlands Commission for them to clear a path for them to get the certain stakes that they wish to go to on the property. That's all I'm asking.
Dave McCollum, in the wetlands agent, there would be no issue for the purposes of navigating the site for the property to be mowed or what have you for the commission to traverse the property.
Thank you.
So that being said, Mike Mizuko speaking, would it be possible to schedule the site walk this weekend and have the applicant clear a path and have maybe Beth go out, look at it, make sure it's okay before we do the site walk? And if there's any adjustments that need to be made, they can be noted. We can take care of it so everybody is happy at the time that we do the site walk or have it scheduled, so we can complete it at the time we go out there so we don't waste everybody's time.
Oh, that sounds marvelous, Mike. I think what you should do, we'll get together, we'll figure it out. Clear the path. I'll go out this weekend at some point, look at it and just verify that whatever, there's a clear path for them to walk from the street to the points that they asked you to stake last time. I assume the stakes are still in there, right?
Right, I assume so, yes.
Okay. And then what we can do is we can schedule a site walk for, I didn't pull up my calendar.
Yeah, well, you got Columbus Day the next weekend, so.
Oh, come on. Really?
I will not be, I won't be here.
Isn't that Indigenous Persons Day now?
Yeah, whatever, Neil.
I mean, I don't
It's a
want to
holiday.
be I don't want to be a
Holiday.
stickler on correctness.
They haven't taken it away from us yet.
Mr. Mizuko is clearly an Italian, and he refers to it as Columbus Day.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, so if you get something done, all right, why don't we try to do this? October, am I around? Let's have them clear. We'll figure it out tomorrow, Mike. Are you around tomorrow? Oh, wait, I'm not around. Well, Mike, you've done this many projects.
Yeah, I can take care of it. I'm just trying to figure out the date, because the only reason why, because I'm, Columbus Day weekend, I'm not going to be around. And then the following weekend, I do have a sidewalk on Saturday, the 17th already.
Okay.
And then you said, I assume that we would still be meeting on the 20th.
Right.
Yeah, so I would just like to get it done sooner
Right.
rather than later. That's my only thing.
Understood.
What about a Sunday morning?
I'm just saying it's already staked. It's not going to take them long to clear it. I mean, would it be possible to do it this weekend on Sunday?
I can. I don't know everybody else. How many can?
Commission members?
Yeah, how many commission members can do Sunday?
Kitty, I can.
Pat, I can.
Linda, I can.
As long as it's not between noon and 1. Kids got
John
flag
Lennon,
football.
I can make it happen.
Yep, I can be there.
If the Pats are playing, I'm out.
Linda, did we hear from you?
Yep, I can do it.
Thank you.
Sunday morning? What time are you guys looking at? What did you try to do last time?
I don't know.
Was it 10,
I think
Mike?
it was 10. Yeah, I think it was 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it
fine.
was 9 or 10.
10, not 9. I got 8 o'clock mass. 10 is
Oh.
good. 10 is good.
Okay.
Also, Mike, you asked about the balloons.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you, based on your expertise, looking at where this building is going to be situated compared to Mark Teague's house, where the balloons need to go, so we can see exactly the visual impact.
Well, we can certainly do the area. Let me zoom in here. Just to depict the end of unit 11, because that's the closest one to the house. And then also maybe down just in the middle of this row, somewhere down in here.
Between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
I
'cause
think
that-
that's good.
That's
okay.
fine.
All right, perfect.
Okay, Michael, when it's cleared, I mean, it's gonna rain tonight, it's gonna rain tomorrow.
Yep.
So that leaves us what? Thursday or Friday?
We'll get it done.
Just call or email me, just like we do with other projects. Tell me it's done. I'll come by, take a quick look. All right?
Beautiful. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sounds good.
All right. We shall move out to the public if there are any comments about this application. Again, David explained how you can go down to the participants and click on your name, and you'll have the ability to raise your hand. And I would ask that not to repeat any comments that we've heard at previous meetings, because that would be very helpful.
Beth, you said you were going to ask First Company why they're
I
not
see a raised hand by Mary Ann Kula first. I will unmute her.
Hi, for 1 second, it's Penny.
Dave, pull down the screen.
Is it possible to get rid of the share screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, you're muted.
I will unmute her.
Muting. All right, there we are. I just wanted to know if I'm 17 Good Hill Road. Sorry. I just wanted to know if neighbors were allowed to go on this site walk.
You can attend the site walk, but there'll be no interaction between commission members and the public attending.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, I see Kristen Geron.
Hello, this is Kristen Geron for the record. I live at 12 Good Hill Road. I brought up conducting a traffic study at the June 30th P&Z meeting, which is important infrastructure reporting necessary for understanding the Good Hill neighborhood traffic patterns. Again, I talked about this previously. You know, this should be indicative of like regular pre-COVID traffic patterns versus today's COVID traffic patterns, if you will. Other towns, such as Fairfield, have required developers to provide a study like this for the town's consideration. For example, I'm referring to the Beach Road Fairfield proposed 830G development that's in front of their town commission right now. The Bethel P&Z Commission should have this study information available to review for their decision making. Already the neighborhood has an increase of traffic due to the Ledge Woods apartment complex on the Hairpin Turn on Taylor. I really would like to know the status of this traffic study from the developer for the town's review. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, I see a Richard Mould.
Hi, Rich Mould, 10 Good Hill Road. On the last meeting, both my wife and I had brought up the question on fire trucks, and we, quite frankly, I'm feeling like the question keeps getting dismissed, that they just said, oh yeah, it can happen, but with an 11-unit complex, you're gonna need multiple fire trucks back there that have a turning radius, and you're gonna need to all have the ability to turn around, but we still haven't gotten an answer on how that's gonna work. Beth, we had asked about bus companies and how that would work on bus companies. I don't know if you've had a chance to chat with the bus companies, and does that mean that they're not picking up the bottom of Taylor now? Or are they picking up further up? And the fact that if they are picking up at the bottom of Good Hill, at the cross section of Taylor, now I'm really concerned about my kids walking to the bus, or me walking to the bus, because now I'm gonna have an influx of 22 cars coming up that one section of road, which now makes it more of a major thoroughfare than a dead end street. So I would still like a better understanding of what the bus companies are going to do to help the students that are on this street. We've asked about water studies. I'm sorry, Beth, go ahead.
No, I thought you were done, Rich. Please excuse me.
Oh, no. Yeah, it was just because you were kind enough to say that you would look into the bus study, so I was curious if there was any further detail on that. Listen, a number of the neighbors in the surrounding areas have asked about wells. We still haven't gotten an answer about this. The people representing the developer keep saying that this is not ledge. This whole street is ledge. We're on a mountain, basically. You can't dig without hitting a lot of rock and ledge. So there is a ledge problem. Every building that they've had to build towards the top of the hill, they've had to blast. So the idea that they're not going to have to blast, I don't think they've done their due diligence to truly prove that out. And I'd like them to prove that out. There must be some level of digging that needs to be done to help prove out that there's not going to be blasting, because if there's blasting, the proximity to these other neighbors, I promise you there will be foundation damage if blasting is required. So that's an issue. So the well concerns, how are they going to pipe water up? people on the street have asked for city water in the past. People have been denied on the street for city water in the past, but now, you know, with an 11-unit complex, that's what they're going to be looking at. How is that going to happen? How is that going to tap in? And is the town going to pay for it to go all the way up Good Hill? Or do I have to pay for do I have to handle well water still? And then the last thing is I still want to understand what the town will do about my property value concerns. I paid over $500,000 for my house, and I guarantee you I'm not going to get that back. So I want to understand what happens to the homeowners on a street like Good Hill Road who have put their life savings into buying a house that is like their dream house, and now I'm going to have a affordable housing complex across the street from me. What is it going to do to my property value, and how will you protect us as citizens of Bethel? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I see a Ryan Cornish.
Hi, everyone. Ryan Cornish, 21 Good Hill Road. The last meeting, I brought up the question of lighting, and I understand that Mr. Mizuko did not do the building at Taylor Avenue, but the lighting on Taylor Avenue, which was also built by Mr. Draper, by the applicant, the lighting at that building, when you drive up Taylor Avenue, it is daytime in the middle of the night. And with the proximity of the houses around that, I know they said that the lighting is not going to be an issue. They'll turn the lights another way, but that's irrelevant when you're talking lights up on a, like they are on Taylor Avenue, high up on the building, because they're all the way up on the second story, or whether you're talking about lights up on a pole in the middle of the parking lot. The other thing is also, as Mr. Mole just said, is the blasting thing. And then the other big issue, which has not been concerned from the last time, and Mr. Mizuko said, you know, the kids can play at the empty space on the uphill side of number 11, where there's open area, but the proximity of that to the Teague's house, number 11, is extremely close, and there's no planned area for anybody to do anything other than in the parking lot. So the proximity to the neighbors is a major issue that everyone's concerned about. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cornish.
Next, we have a Mrs. Garrity.
Hey, this is Rich Garrity. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, your address, Mr. Garrity?
It's 13 Good Hill Road.
Thank you.
So just a couple points I want to emphasize. I'm totally in the same agreement with the safety side for my young kids that are now just at the point of going to be getting on the school bus side. Really just that walking down there, the increase of traffic. I mean, you're talking about potentially another 23 vehicles that are going to be coming out of there down to that corner there. What happens in the wintertime when there's a lot of snow? Our car is going to be on the street. Is there going to be room? Are they going to be at a stop at the bottom of the hill? Where do my kids stand? There's no sidewalks right now. You know, with the increased traffic from the other complex that got put in, I mean, it's really got me concerned. I also, you know, I had asked for a balloon from my side. I know we keep talking about the elevation and where that line of sight will be for the Teague side of things. But when you look at that drawing, if you were to stand on the edge of my property there or stand on my deck, the way those buildings are coming up, I really want to get an idea of how high that tallest point is on the edge of my rock work. Because to be honest, excuse my French, it looks like I could piss off the edge of my property there and it will land on the roof. So I'm a little concerned about that too, based on the property lines. And last but not least too, you know, with snow or people out, where are they going to put all these people? You know, where do they go? You know, it's 11 units. I don't know how many bedrooms in each one, if we call it 2. I mean, there's potential of 23 people plus kids. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Are they going to be coming up into my property and I got to call the landlord and complain every time this happens? You know, how am I going to feel safe about my kids going out there too? So those are my real big points, but I'd like to have a balloon that really on the edge of my property where it overlooks that. How close is that going to be to where I am? And that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Garrity.
I'm not seeing anyone else at this time.
All right, we'll turn this back to the applicant to address the questions.
Well, I'm again, for the record, Neil Marcus. To answer the first question, is the public invited to attend the site walk? Yes, we oftentimes ask them to sign waivers of liability because even if the site is cut, it is sometimes got difficult terrain for people who are not used to walking on it, and you might have to sign a waiver to go on the property. That's not unusual. Take that up with the applicant. Traffic study would be a little unusual for this small project on a site that is, barely off of Taylor Avenue. Given the fact that the site doesn't travel much, traffic to the site doesn't travel all that much on Good Hill, it would be very unusual to find a need to do that. So we haven't, because it doesn't meet the normal criteria. I'm not sure what the safety issue is that would trigger a traffic study. If it's a question of whether Taylor Avenue is got issues, that's not really a concern of the applicant. And quite honestly, Good Hill Road is not a concern of the applicant. The applicant's concern is the traffic on the site. And again, it would seem to me that the traffic patterns are so apparent. It's not a complicated site layout that it wouldn't be warranted. Access for fire trucks, I mean, again, it's a pretty straight shot into the property, and it shouldn't be complicated for the Bethel volunteers. How will buses serve the site? That was a question again. That's something that we don't usually get involved with at this time of at this stage of the application. The board of the superintendent's office coordinates how buses, with the bus company, how the buses will serve all the sites in Bethel, and we don't think that there's anything unique about this site that would require the applicant to try to figure out how the town of Bethel should operate its school buses. So we're not going to go there. A water study for blasting, that was another issue. Generally speaking, if we do blasting, and we don't anticipate significant blasting on the site, but if it's done, you do a pre-blast survey. And again, if people want to really go into the impact of blasting on the well, we've put together a program to do that. But generally, we would do that when it's really determined that blasting is required. And then we would ask, we'd figure out where you'd actually blast and look at the range of impact, the zone of impact from the blast. And again, blasting today is a lot different than what people have in their minds. The cone of influence from a blast depends upon the geological makeup of the rock. So that's the first thing you study. And then based on that, it is also affected by the diameter of the holes that you drill. And so a lot of people think that blasting has more impact than it does. But a pre-blast study is done. It's then determined by the type of material you're going to blast and the size of the holes that you're likely to drill, how far out any wave, shock wave would be felt underground. And then you'd go look at the houses that need to be studied, number one. And number two, if you're really going to go after wells, then what you have to do is determine in the individual well what the static water level is pre-blast. And also you want to do the yield. you have to do a yield analysis, because the idea is that everybody thinks that when you blast, somehow the well is going to either collapse, which rarely happens, and in some cases, actually, the water flow improves because you're fracking wells inadvertently. But and fracking is a method to improve flow. So that's a long-winded answer about the water study for blasting. If it's warranted, it will happen. And then the next question was, well, how's water going to get to this site? Well, that will be on that's shown on our plan, where we tend to hook into the existing available water at the nearest terminal point. And here's the better question: who will pay to take it up the hill? Well, generally, that is done by an assessment for benefits, where the town will determine that there's a need for water, and then they'll go out and determine what the benefit is to the individual property that'll be served. And that's a complicated formula based upon the use of the property. These are all residential, but more an issue of frontage. And we have a lot more frontage on the road. The assessment for benefits could be a little higher than when you don't. But I would anticipate, if the neighbors who live up the hill can convince the water company to provide water, that they will have to be prepared to bond out the cost of getting it up there. And then the next question was, how does the town protect property values? And again, that's not something that we normally get into in 8-30G, because that is far removed, very far removed from public health and safety. But I guess, that the town, I'm not going to speak for the town. Will the town offer to do landscaping or something that'll improve a property value because affordable housing is built in an area? I haven't seen that, but if you ask me, could you come up with a method where a town could help protect the property values? The answer is yes, I could. I'm not going to, because the town hasn't asked me to do that. But generally speaking, that's not an issue involved in this decision. Other questions dealt again with blasting and lighting. Lighting, again, is not usually a health or safety issue. Lighting is aesthetic. And in this case, we'll work clearly with the commission in terms of putting in proper downlighting and putting in hours of operation that are appropriate, because lighting is considered to be for the benefit of public safety, i.e., if you drive into your parking lot late at night, particularly in the wintertime, it's nice to have some lights so you can see where you're walking. But we will certainly cooperate with the town, with the commission, on designing lighting that's appropriate for the site. The next question is, I'm not quite sure I understand Mr. Garrity's question. Where will the kids stand to wait for the buses? I think it goes back to an issue of how the school buses will serve the Good Hill Road if when the project is open. And I think a lot of that has to do with the school-age population in this particular proposed construction. And we don't anticipate that there'll be a lot, because in the region, there's not a lot of school-age kids in multifamily, small-sized units. But again, if there are, it's going to be something that'll have to be addressed at that time. So again, I don't want to be, vague, but the issues here really are not the type that we come prepared to discuss, which are, what is the impact on public health and safety? And if there is an issue, how are we going to address it? Again, with reasonable modifications to the proposal to do that. So those are our brief answers. The thing that the Affordable Housing Act clearly did not consider is whether they didn't consider aesthetics and they didn't consider popularity. Clearly, affordable housing came into effect because in the 1989 legislature, there was a concern that we would have a housing crisis. And interestingly enough, in spite of the concern, we have a housing crisis. But with all due respect to the town of Bethel, they've done a lot to try to address that. And it's a tribute to this commission that they've allowed and in some cases encouraged affordable and transit-oriented housing. So the questions that a lot of the neighbors seem to be asking are, you know, how do you deal with housing that we don't think is either appropriate or consistent with what we envision our neighborhood to be? And the answer to that is there are ways to landscape and to develop the property that you can address those issues. But at the end of the day, none of those really, none of them supersede the legislative intent to provide affordable housing. So if we come up with any specific issues of, and it may come out of the site walk, when you go out on the site, if you have some specific issue is, why is this happening at a certain point on the site? Because we think that it does provide a safety issue, we'll continue to address it. But at this point in the review process, we haven't seen that raised. So I think that we're going to stick with the plan as you've seen it presented this evening and further described by Mike. And we'll just wait to hear the commission's comments after the site walk.
Hey, Neil, can I just add to that?
Sure, good.
For the record, Mike Mizuko. And I'm just going to share my screen again just to go over a couple of things. One is the blasting, and we've talked about this, you know, quite a bit. As I said, most of this site is being filled. And if you look at the one area where there is some rock outcrop in this corner, you can see that the existing grade is 516 at the corner of the building, and it's dropping. And our slab elevation's at 517, so we're a foot above that. The only other place is the units 9, 10, and 11. We're excavating roughly, say, 2 to 3 feet along the back wall. This is the only area that we're doing any cutting for the buildings. And then the only other area, because all of this stuff is being elevated, you can see that this contour right here, this elevation is 512. And we're at, in the middle of the parking lot, 515. Oh, I lost my, oh, there we go. Lost my movement there for a bit. And as I mentioned, the only other area we have any deep excavation, let me just go to the site utilities plan, is just this area here where there's a high point for the driveway grade and the sewer line has to run through there. But we have a test hole here that we're 7 feet deep, which is just about the elevation of the invert of the pipe. So we don't expect blasting. If we have to do a little bit of rock removal, it might be with a hammer. We are not expecting any blasting. With regard to the water line, we did meet with Public Utilities, and it was my understanding that the installation of the water line would have to come and extend across the entire frontage of the site, and because it wraps around number 11, we extended the water line up to the point of the edge of our property line and proposed the hydrant there. And again, it was my understanding from the meeting that we had that improvement would be paid for by the developer. So I know, Neil, some other towns look at assessing who benefits from it, but it was my understanding that that would be paid for by the developer.
To the site, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The question that was raised, Mike, was who's going to bring it up the hill?
Oh, beyond that, then, yeah, okay, beyond that, then that would be, I'm not even sure how to answer that question, but I understand what you're saying as far as like if everybody gets together and then everybody gets an assessment for it.
And Mike, I'm glad you clarified a little bit more on the blasting issue, because you know what? I years ago represented Costa Sturgeon and Tom King, who built a lot of Good Hill, and particularly when they were at the point that they were building houses up on the top of the hill. And I got to tell you, there was a lot of rock up there. There's no question. Whoever the neighbors who spoke about, but that was at the top of the hill, and basically, as Mike has indicated, we're at the bottom, and we're talking more about filling than cutting. So,
right, yeah, that's the big thing, and there is a massive amount of rock up on the top of the hill, and if you're cutting into it, then yeah, you have blasting that you have to deal with. So that was it, and then the only other thing with regard to Rich's comment about the balloon, so we're planning to put a balloon right at the end of unit 11, which would be, the center line of the peak of the roof, which would be, again, closest to 13 Good Hill Road. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where the applicant has responded, and if there are no other questions, we're done.
Mike, would you mind disabling your screen sharing?
Sure. Oh, just one other comment. There was a comment about fire truck and emergency vehicle access. I just want to point out that you can see that the parking area, we have the turning movements here for the aerial fire truck. So it would come in, there's a 1-point turn to back in and then pull back out. But at the same time, you can see that the separation distance between these parking areas is quite wide. Normally, for a dual parking on both sides of an aisle, we would have 24 feet in between. We almost have double that just to allow for emergency vehicles to be able to come in, stack in, and move around, and be able to effectively, fight a fire with the proper amount of equipment. And that's part of the reason why we did that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Beth, did you have any other comments before we continue this hearing?
Yeah, I just want to speak a little bit about as far as the bus situation. I do believe that was a concern. It was a concern of mine because I never knew that the buses didn't go up Good Hill Road. I have talked to the superintendent's office in regards to that. And because of COVID, they just started using the buses this week. It's been very difficult to me to clarify or understand exactly how that works, and especially in that area with turning radiuses and stuff. So I will have that information for you for the meeting on the 20th. In regards to public health just doesn't apply to the potential 830G development. Public health also applies to those surrounding and those in general. I do believe that there is some questions that the applicant, the engineer, has answered in regards to public health. I think that lighting is an important issue that should be addressed during the hearing process. I think the site walk that we conduct on this weekend will help us get a better visual as far as the structure that's proposed directly behind a single family residence. I think that there are some health issues there in regards to that. And I do believe that there are other instances along the same line. So it's not just focusing on the property itself, okay? Second to that, I do believe that I have to disagree with Mr. Marcus as far as the number of children in relation to any type of this proposed development. I think our existing numbers show differently. These are all 2-bedroom units. So I think children and the concerns dealing with safety of buses and access and things of that nature, we should at least discuss it and look into it a little bit more before making a decision. At the next hearing, a lot of the questions concerning values in the town and what we actually do on affordable housing, where the need is, where we are in affordable housing, we will be doing a lot more detail in regards to that. And I would encourage all the adjoining property owners to listen in on that hearing.
Thank you, Beth. All right, so this hearing will be continued to October 20th. And Beth, you'll get back to us to let us know that the sidewalk is ready to go. And if they would also address that hole that you almost stepped into when you were out there.
Well, if they've got a path, we should be able to avoid the hole. The other thing is, I think there was some other members of the public that had their hands raised.
Oh, did they? David, did you see other people?
Yes, there are 3 members of the public. I think they are questions / comments to what Mr. Marcus's and Mr. Mizuko's responses were. The first one I'm seeing is Mr. Cornish, if you wouldn't have any opposition to them speaking.
Hey, Ryan Cornish, 21 Good Hill Road. And like Mr. Marcus said, I live at the top of the hill, so I look at a bunch of rocks. So yes, there is a lot of rock up here, but that doesn't change anything at the bottom of the hill. And the area where I'm concerned about with the blasting is in where Mr. Mizuko pointed out, where the septic will run out in between Mark Teague's house at number 9 and Frank Conti's house at number 7. That is the deepest point of the excavation, but that is also the closest proximity of the 2 houses to any portion of the land. And that proximity is the issue. And Mr. Mizuko also said there's going to be no blasting. Mr. Marcus just contradicting him, said not significant blasting. Again, you don't know until you get in the ground. There's no way to know what you're going to encounter until you get in the ground. So those are the concerns regarding that. And I know Mr. Marcus said that the traffic pattern is irrelevant up there. It doesn't matter. They didn't even consider it. When you double the traffic on the road, which is what this is going to do, you're going to put 85% more traffic back on this road. That's a public concern to the residents on the road. And between that unit, this proposed unit, and the unit that went in on Taylor 2 years ago, you're now doubling the traffic on Taylor Avenue as well, which is already an extremely narrow, highly trafficked road. There's still no sidewalks on Taylor Avenue. There's nothing for the public to navigate that road. So adding more traffic to that road is a public concern, despite what Mr. Marcus has to say, what his opinion is. I respectfully disagree with him incredibly highly on that issue. Thank you.
Next, we have Richard Mold.
So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to repeat a few of the things that that Ryan Cornish just mentioned. And I just want to make a couple comments on some quotes. The applicant is not concerned about Good Hill. He's concerned about the site. Well, that's unfortunate because you have an entire street worth of people that are interested in public safety. But I'd like the applicant to be concerned about public safety on the street with which he intends to develop. That was number one. We don't typically need to do a traffic study. With everything that Mr. Cornish just said, quite frankly, I'm not looking for an opinion. The public is asking for a traffic study. And I think the traffic has a right to receive a traffic study. So that's something I would ask that we continue to, we just flat out deny this, because the fact that we keep asking for things and we keep getting the runaround, we don't get straight answers as the public, this is getting very, very frustrating. We're just asking for answers. The fire truck issue, great that you brought the map up. I asked you how you get 3 fire trucks back there, which would probably be needed. If you have an 11 unit, 2-bedroom units, 11 units ablaze, you can't have that with 1 fire truck. I don't see how. I'm no fire expert, but I have to assume you're gonna need more than 1. You can't do it from the street. So how are you gonna get multiple trucks back there? The bus issue is not our issue. It's a safety issue. It is your issue. It's something that needs to be solved. And I'm gonna repeat this. We won't blast. We don't anticipate blasting we don't anticipate significant blasting. We're asking for answers and we're not getting them. And as a citizen of this street in this town, I'm growing a little frustrated that we keep asking for the representatives of this applicant to give us answers and we're not getting them. I respectfully ask that we just deny this applicant out of failure to cooperate with planning and zoning or with the public for getting us the answers that we ask for and deserve. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mold.
Next, Marianne Kula.
You have to unmute her.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Marianne Kula, 17 Good Hill Road. And I would like to remind Attorney Marcus and the board that we also are the public. The neighbors are the public. And our health and safety and peace of mind are not being improved by this project. But my big issue is, will the town or the builder ensure the neighbors if our wells go dry because of this new project? We know what happened 2 years ago when they didn't have to blast much and the water poured out of the ground, you know, down on Taylor, where the new building is, the apartment complex there. And he created a mess all winter. The road froze. You couldn't use that part of Taylor. Who knows what's going to happen if this goes forward? And we as the public, as the neighbors, deserve to be protected just as much as this builder. We're a reasonable neighborhood. We wouldn't care if a couple of units of housing were put in there, but 11 units of housing squeezed in there is a terrible idea and it shouldn't be built. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Marianne.
Kristen Duran.
Hi, Kristen Duran, 12 Good Hill for the record. In regards to the traffic study, I'm bringing this up for major safety concerns for this entire neighborhood, which, to clarify, does include Taylor and Good Hill. Neil, with all due respect, you don't live in this neighborhood, so you don't know the human behavior of this area, or even, it seems, care to know for the safety of the residents and their children who, you know, walk, play, and traverse on these roads. It's really concerning. You know, every day when I drive on Taylor and try to turn onto Good Hill, more times than not, I almost get hit trying to take a left onto my road due to someone speeding up Taylor. I mean, this is with the conditions that we have now. You know, now imagine what it's going to be like when we add 20 plus cars, you know, to the neighborhood roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Rich Garrity.
Hi, this is Robin Garrity, 13 Good Hill Road. I'm just, I wanted to make a comment about the frustration that I feel as if it's assumed that children will not be moving into the complex. And I am a teacher in Bethel, and my class sizes have dramatically increased. So the fact that there isn't any thought about the buses, where these children will be playing, is a huge issue. I have 3 young children who play outside, and if the children that move into the complex walk up and down the hill and have nowhere to play, that's a concern for me. As well as we have town members that come up and hang out at the top of the hill, which is already a concern for Ryan and Tori. And now we're gonna add whatever children that move in down below all the way up there as well. So the fact that we're just disregarding that, oh, there probably won't be any children, I can tell you that my class size has grown and grown and grown. By the end of the year, I have at least 5 new students. So we have a brand new school, and I'm already at 25 students in September. So the public, the point of the public safety and the health of everybody is not just for the building to be built, but it's also to take care of everybody on the street. And even the children that move in there, giving them nowhere to play, giving them no sidewalk, having them walk to the bottom of the hill for buses on a street that is so dangerous is absolutely ridiculous. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich Mold again.
All right, just one thing I forgot to mention. It was also mentioned that it's not, with 830G, it doesn't really take into account the economic well-being of the neighborhood or surrounding property values, but I'm pretty sure on the planning and zoning site, it talks about the need for regulations to protect economic well-being. So I just wanted to bring that up. That was something that I also had written down. So I appreciate you letting me speak again. I wanted to make sure I brought that up. I'll ask again that we deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Neil, I don't think there was anything in the comments to answer. I think they were comments.
Well, actually, Pat, there's a misunderstanding of what I actually say about traffic, and which is really a shame, because quite honestly, I am concerned about the safety of traffic. The question is, whose burden is it to deal with that? I mean, for example, I think one of the worst intersections in Bethel in the area is probably where Chestnut meets Nashville in South Street. And that's a terrible intersection. It's not very safe. And I do drive through there every day. But the fact of the matter is that whose burden is it to fix that? And the suggestion is that somehow the applicant has that obligation. And the applicant doesn't. I'll refer the commission and its counsel to the case of Green versus the town of Richfield, which is the famous Ivy Hill case in Richfield, where Ivy Hill was identified as one of the worst traffic problems in the town. And Judge Berger, in one of his first affordable housing decisions back in about 1992, indicated that condition was not caused by the applicant. Everybody came out and said it was a terrible road. The Board of Selectmen has a duty to fix it. So if the people today are talking about the conditions that are terrible, the applicant, Tim Draper, doesn't have the obligation to fix that. He's not causing that. He hasn't built anything on Good Hill Road. But I think that the misconception is that I'm not sensitive or concerned. Actually, I am. I'd like to see, and again, when the issues were raised up on Shelley Road, I wrote a letter to Matt Knickerbocker and told him that people said that they were fearful of using Shelley Road, and that maybe the Board of Selectmen ought to take it up and do something. And I haven't followed up with him since then to see if he did. But the issue is not, if there are traffic problems, the issue is who has to fix them and who has to deal with them. And that's why a traffic study is not really warranted. The other great case is the Buttermilk case, which again, Chuck is on the phone. We all know Buttermilk. That was an amazing case about developing on a dirt road and who had the obligation to make the dirt road into an acceptable town road. Well, the town had the obligation, not the developer. So with all due respect to the neighbors, I don't want to leave them with the impression that I'm not sensitive to what their issues are. But I'm suggesting that those under 8-30G are not our issues, because quite honestly, when the legislature passed the public act that created the statute, they zoned this property for this use. They did. I mean, that's what they did. They zoned any commercial and residential property, not industrial, as a zone for affordable housing. So people think that somehow applicants created these issues. The applicants have to deal with the issues, but they don't create those issues. And ultimately, it's the town that has to deal with the road. And it's if the neighbors are demanding a traffic study, well, quite honestly, the town ought to do the traffic study because they're your constituents. But I think that's some of the misconception. And I got to go back on blasting. I never rule. I agree with the speaker who said, well, you never quite know it's in the ground until you put the shovel in. I agree with that. But we try to use our best judgment as to what we think we're going to encounter without doing an enormous number of deep holes and drilling and try to figure out exactly what's core samples of what's in the ground. But we use our best judgment, and Mike's presentation and response is an example of using your best judgment. And I'm saying that if we do encounter ledge, which quite honestly, I encountered in my own driveway just to put down my electrical line, but it was small. It popped out in 2 minutes, and it wasn't even worth a 4th of July celebration. But the fact of the matter is that I'm saying if we encounter it, we anticipate based on our own analysis of the site and the conditions of the neighborhood that it would be minimal. It would be minimal. So, you know, people can talk about blasting forever, and none of it is very intelligent until you actually go in and start to excavate on the site. And fortunately, there's very limited areas of excavation here. So, and the last thing I'm going to leave with the commission, my client, of course, will probably say, how could you even suggest that? But if you are seriously concerned about fire safety, fire truck access to the site, there is the opportunity of making a double access. But quite honestly, the last thing we want to do to our neighbors is to bring another driveway down next to their houses that isn't really necessary. But think about that when you go out there on your site visit and say, could you come in on one side of the site and go out on the other side? I'm adamantly opposed to that, but I can't tell you that if that is a concern, we will go and investigate that possibility. But we're not going to do it yet because, quite honestly, I don't think it's a concern. But all of the comments from the commission in particular and the neighbors, we do consider. It's not that we dismiss them. But we try to figure out who is responsible for dealing with it. And unfortunately, I don't think the neighbors quite understand the statute. And quite honestly, half the Connecticut bar doesn't understand the statute because it's a unique statute. It's not your normal planning and zoning. It's a deviation from the norm. So with that, I don't want to debate these issues on and on, but to the extent that there is a safety issue identified with the development of this property, we will address that. But the problems with traffic in Taylor Road and in Nashville Road or whatever, the town really has to take a look at those issues. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Beth, any other comments?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, as no other business is being conducted this evening, may I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Penny. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstention? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Penny.
And just know, everybody, that we are going to, this is going, I can't recall, it's too late. October 20th is our next
Correct.
meeting
Correct.
on this. And a
Yeah,
site
they're both
Sunday.
adjourned to the 20th.